Chapter 709. This chapter is Dreamy Battle Song. Please update it. Marquis Nuteo, with blood on the corner of his mouth, was still dizzy. A moment ago he was high-spirited and wanted to avenge his shame. The next moment, his hands and feet were chained and he became a prisoner. How can you be so strong? He calmed down and saw the handsome smiling face in front of him, and could not help but be frightened. List looked at the ongoing naval battle and said easily, "My strength is improving every day, and I have the powerful power of the Ice Soul Dragon slaying sword, while you are just making no progress. It's natural for you to be captured by me." The chaotic boarding battle did not subside because of Marquis Nuteo's failure. In fact, except for Marquis Nuteo, there were still several Sky Knights of the Eagle Kingdom who performed well and began to lead the battle. If Sapphire's Knight was not familiar with naval battles, the battle might have been one-sided. This time the Eagle Kingdom had planned the raid for a long time and had gathered a large number of elite knight. The Sky Knight alone could form several elite orders of chivalry. The dense mass of Sky Knights was flying around. The advantages brought by fast sailboats and proficiency in water were reversing, and Sapphire's fleet began to show signs of defeat. "I don't know how you practice. Is it the powerful power of the Ice Soul Dragon slaying sword, or some ancient warrior inheritance that makes you so powerful?" Marquis Nuteo calmed down. "But even if you capture me, you can't change the fate of Sapphire." "Is that so?" "You wait, Sapphire will be completely taken over by the Eagle Kingdom. Sapphire family and your followers will all become prisoners of the Eagle Kingdom." "I don't think so. The Grand Duke hasn't made a move yet. As soon as the Sapphire Dragon comes, you will be scared shitless." List pretended to be young and frivolous, to see if he could cheat out any information. Besides, the sea is Sapphire's horse farm. When Sapphire's orders of chivalry are assembled, they can annihilate you without the Sapphire Dragon. Arrogant and ignorant. Marquis Wildwave wanted to despise List, but he suddenly remembered that he was the prisoner. He could only turn his head and close his eyes, not saying a word. List continued to bluff. "You have to prepare the ransom. As a domain knight, your ransom is not a small amount." Marquis Nuteo smiled calmly. "Do you really think you'll be rescued soon?" "Di Maria, given my ability, no one will be able to stop me if I travel freely on this sea. This means that no one will be able to save you. Only a ransom can exchange for your freedom. You don't have to waste your breath. Very soon, you will understand what the outcome of this ocean will be. I'm just a minor character in this war. No matter how strong you are just a minor character like me." "Are you trying to scare me?" "No." After Marquis Nuteo had calmed down, he became impenetrable. He was unwilling to reveal anything. He repeatedly said things like Sapphire was done for, and he would be done for soon. To be able to become a domain knight, Marquis Nuteo was not a hothead. He would be easily tricked by a few words. At this time, Marquis Oxtail, who had been fished out of the sea and had changed into a set of clean clothes, walked over. Seeing Marquis Nuteo tied up tightly, he was filled with emotion. He had thought that he was not far from completion and could take a few blows from a domain knight. He had not expected to be blasted into the sea the moment they met. He had lost face. Luckily, List had helped him regain it. "Di Maria, I didn't think we would meet again so soon. In another battlefield you would definitely be a force to be reckoned with. Unfortunately you can't here. Lee William, you only gave birth to a good son. You can't even take one of my swords. I said before, if you said this in another situation I would be ashamed. But now you are tied up on my ship. These words have no power. Very soon. I know what you are thinking. You think that the Eagle Kingdom will definitely win this war, so you don't care if you are captured. But unfortunately, no matter what, being captured is still being captured. The Tulip family can have many choices, but for you there is only one choice." Lee William had his hands behind his back, looking as though he had Di Maria in his grasp. His subtext was very simple. Perhaps the Sapphire family would be destroyed, but as long as the Tulip family surrendered in time, he believed that they would soon become nobles of the Eagle Kingdom. At that time, no matter how high Marquis Nuteo's status was, he would still have to pay a ransom to the Tulip family if he wanted freedom, because this was what the Tulip family deserved. Unless the Tulip family was destroyed along with the Sapphire family, or if they were captured, Marquis Nuteo would not be able to regain his freedom. No matter what, the shame of being defeated and captured had been locked onto Marquis Nuteo. It could only be washed away with time. There was no other way. Seeing Marquis Nuteo's face change from green to red, Lee William finally vented his anger. No matter if it was glorious or not, he was the victor, After all, he had a dragon knight as his son. Marquis Nu Tao, who was panting heavily, was imprisoned at the bottom of the cabin. Li William and List began to slow down the momentum of the attack, preparing to slack off. Whether it was Li William's previous somersaults or List's capture of Marquis Nu Tao, they were enough to show their bravery on the battlefield and repay the Grand Duke's trust. Next, List could use the excuse that he was exhausted from the battle, and Li William could use the excuse that he was seriously injured by Marquis Nu Tao and did not need to fight anymore. It's time to retreat. The fleet of the Blue Blood Orders of Chivalry could not withstand the bombardment of the Eagle Kingdom's Sky Knight, and the flagship of the eldest prince has also been attacked several times. Li William said while observing with his binoculars. List was about to agree with the Marquis's opinion when his chest suddenly moved. The little fire dragon Leo had already sent him a message through the telepathic bond. This made him raise his eyebrows and he could not help but say excitedly, "Father, I'm afraid the fleet will not retreat. The Grand Duke is coming." The Grand Duke? I can feel the aura of the sapphire dragon. It is not far from us. Is that so? It seems that I have to continue to order the fleet to leave a good impression on the Grand Duke. Li William immediately began to command the fleet to find new opponents to fight. List and Achi stood side by side at the bow of the ship. He did not expect the Sapphire Grand Duke to join the battle so early. After all, according to the usual night wars, the boss would always appear at the last moment. In any case, he was still looking forward to the appearance of the Sapphire Dragon. Every dragon was synonymous with power and beauty. With such expectations, the chaotic battlefield suddenly became quiet, and all the knights stopped fighting. One by one they turned their heads and looked towards the northern sky. A dragon's roar came rolling like thunder. Suddenly, a blue dragon rushed out of the clouds, its crystal blue sparkling under the sun. It flew down from the clouds and as soon as it appeared, it shocked the whole battlefield. Brr. The sapphire dragon continued to roar and slowly descended over the battlefield. One could vaguely see a figure in blue armor standing on the dragon-tooth platform between its neck and shoulder blade. As for the sapphire dragon, it was still in the same broken body as last time. One of its forelimbs was broken, and half of its scales were rotten. Its magic was still strong, but its body showed no signs of recovery. Is it unwilling to recover or is it unable to recover? List cast magic eyes and carefully observed this powerful adult dragon. At the same time he covered his chest. He tried to suppress the heat in his chest. Chapter 710. This chapter is Loves Cigarettes, Loves Wine, Loves Books. As an elemental dragon that was often confused with evil dragons, Leo was a fire dragon. Leo's character was arrogant, domineering, and had an evil nature. Without the power of the enigmatic dragon's soul fruit, List might not have been able to ride on its back. Even as the evil continued to grow, Leo might even turn against List, who hatched and nurtured it. Although it was now in harmony with List's mind, List had cut off its evil thoughts from time to time. But it was as arrogant as ever. A disabled sapphire dragon was not in its eyes, and it did not like such a disabled dragon to be in the limelight in front of it. List had to appease it and calm it down. To prevent it from rushing out of its body and revealing its true body to fight with the sapphire dragon, ruining the plan of the fisherman. Brother, the sapphire dragon seems to be disfigured. With the dragon's powerful resilience, why hasn't it restored its body yet? Achi looked at the sapphire dragon flying in the sky, her eyes flashing with many thoughts. Did it deliberately leave a scar, or is the injury unable to recover? She had the same question as List. It doesn't look like a deliberate recovery. If it really wanted to keep a scar to remind itself of the suffering it had suffered, then it should have left a scar long before the founding of the country. List could only analyze it this way. In the dragon-slaying war before the founding of the country, the sapphire dragon was almost killed by the white-mouth iron dragon. That was a deep memory worth remembering. Is it because the soul is damaged so the wound can't be healed? Achi continued to ask, but List could not provide an answer. Just when everyone thought that the Grand Duke had come with the sapphire dragon to deal with the invaders of the Eagle Kingdom, the sapphire dragon hovered in the sky and did not take the initiative to descend and expel the invaders of the Eagle Kingdom. List, what's going on? The Oxtail Marquis came over again. He was going to take advantage of the sapphire dragon's appearance to play a role, but the sapphire dragon did not land, and the battle on the sea was stalled. List looked at the figures of the sapphire dragon and the Grand Duke, and then at the distant sea skyline. I'm afraid the Grand Duke isn't here for the fleet. The Eagle Kingdom's fleet will be taken care of by the Sapphire Fleet. His target should be Alonso Cypher. Alonso is here? I didn't sense it. When I'm not riding a dragon, my five senses aren't that sensitive. I can't sense a dragon knight that's further away. So he could only wait. The Grand Duke rode on his sapphire dragon and waited above the battlefield. At this moment, the waves of the sea were still turbulent, but the battlefield was strangely quiet. None of the ships dared to move carelessly under the eyes of a dragon. The Grand Duke didn't issue an order, and the Sapphire Fleet's commander, the eldest prince, also didn't move. Time ticked by. Annoyance rose in everyone's heart, even Liszt began to feel irritated. The arrival of the Sapphire Dragon made Leo unable to sleep peacefully, and he couldn't ignore the ugly Sapphire Dragon flying arrogantly in the sky. He was so anxious that his inner clothes were soaked. Fighting or not fighting, retreating or not retreating. What is the Grand Duke doing? He simply held the Ice Soul Dragon slaying sword and used the Ice Twist skill to release his ice-attributed chi to cool down and soothe the agitation caused by Leo. The effect of the ice-attributed chi was good. It quieted Leo down a little. But before it was quiet for 5 minutes, Leo became excited again, and sent Liszt his senses. Another dragon had arrived. Roar. The Sapphire Dragon let out a loud dragon roar. Its head was aimed at the southern sky, and its eyes bloomed with a dazzling blue light. Liszt followed Leo's senses and also looked at the southern sky. The blue sky and white clouds seemed to be the same, but he picked up his binoculars and soon found a faintly discernible dragon flying among the white clouds. After a while, the dragon broke through the clouds and flew towards the battlefield. Its posture was also officially exposed to everyone's eyes. It was a cyan adult dragon, shining with the unique luster of metal. Compared to the Sapphire Dragon's 50-meter-long wingspan, its wingspan was a little small, about 30 meters. Its figure was slimmer than Sapphire, and its body was not as long as the Sapphire Dragon. But on its dragon-tooth platform, sat a knight in black armor. There was no doubt. This was a real dragon knight, a knight who was one with the dragon's heart. He held a spear about 5 meters long in his hand, the same cyan color as the bronze dragon mount. The spearhead was different from the ordinary knight's spear, like an old-fashioned folding umbrella. 1/3 of the spear was the spearhead, which had a conical structure, and the thickest part was as big as a knight's round shield. This made Liszt inexplicably think of Athena's golden spear in King's Glory. A 5-meter-long dragon spear is just right for the bronze dragon's physique. I really want to grab it for me and Leo to use together. Leo's adult wingspan is 100 meters, so a 10-meter-long dragon spear is the most suitable, but a 5-meter-long dragon spear can barely make do. It's the best match for Leo, who is now in his childhood. He was not amazed by the Dragon Knight's imposing manner, but like Leo, he wanted to rush out and fight. His first thought was to grab some equipment. Of course. He quickly suppressed the thought and silently watched the confrontation between the two dragons and the two knights in the sky from the perspective of a bystander. Alonso, you have to think clearly. There is a price to pay for invading my Sapphire. The Sapphire Grand Duke Andrew Sapphire's voice was loud and clear. The expression of the bronze dragon knight Alonso Copernicus could not be seen clearly. He was wearing a knight's helmet with a mask, but his voice was low and hoarse, revealing majesty. Do you think I spent so much effort to distract the Dragon Knight of Iron and Steel Ridge just to come and listen to a few threatening words from you? It seems that there is nothing to talk about? You have never been qualified to talk. A crippled sapphire dragon, an old man who can't ride a dragon. I'm going to make my move, Duke Andrew. Alonso seemed to want to ridicule a few words, but in the end he did not continue to ridicule. He just calmly made a choice. The Green Knight waved his spear. One man and one dragon quickly rushed towards the Sapphire Dragon. The Sapphire Grand Duke did not have a dragon spear, and he was not the Dragon Knight. He was just standing on the dragon tooth platform to ride the Sapphire Dragon. But he did not show panic in the face of the Dragon Knight. He calmly pulled out a blue greatsword from his waist. The greatsword was 2 meters long. The blade emitted blue flames like flowing water. This was a knight's long sword that had never appeared in the description. It was not similar to the Grand Duke's sword, the Wailing Cage sword, that Liszt had heard of. The Wailing Cage sword was just a great elf soldier of the same level as the Ice Soul Dragon slaying sword. It was about 1.5 meters long and did not emit blue flames. Instead, it was the Bull Marquis sword that Liszt had seen before. The great sword that he jokingly called Flame Joy emitted blue flames. It was speculated that it might be cast from the forelimbs of the Sapphire Dragon. No matter what sword it was, when the great sword was pulled out, the Sapphire Dragon suddenly shone with blue light, and its momentum became stronger. At this time the Grand Duke sat down on the dragon tooth platform. One man and one dragon quickly became one. In the vision of List's magic eyes, chi and magic merged into one. Brandishing the great sword, he rushed towards the bronze dragon knight Alonso. Chapter 7:11. This chapter is a reward for the leader, Ink Horizon. 1 chapter for now and 5 more chapters in the future. Old Fox. An indecent exclamation popped up in List's mind. Sapphire Grand Duke was really a cunning old fox. He guessed for a long time whether it was the Dragon Knight or the Dragon City Lord, and finally decided it was the Dragon City Lord. As a result, he actually rode the Sapphire Dragon at the moment of battle and became a real Dragon Knight. This is entrapment. List's heart was a little uneasy. He was full of confidence that as long as he succeeded in riding the dragon, he could beat the Grand Duke. Now that he thought about it, he was still too young and did not know the dangers of the underworld. I'm afraid that after the dragon-slaying incident, the Grand Duke had the idea of entrapment in his heart. Otherwise, he would not have always put on the posture of the Dragon City Lord. He knew the ambition of the Eagle Kingdom and would naturally be on guard. Although the speculation was hindsight, it was not too late. At least he still had a chance to reap the benefits. The Sapphire Dragon Knight and the Bronze Dragon Knight would eventually fight. Boom. The dragon fighting energy of the earth element collided with the dragon fighting energy of the ice element. The bronze dragon also collided with the sapphire dragon once. The huge bodies collided with each other, making a dull sound. The cyan dragon spear and the blue flame sword collided, sparks and lightning. The dragon's fighting chi transformed into rocks and hailstones that rained down crazily, splashing the sea below. The prince had to command the fleet to retreat, and the Eagle Kingdom also began to command to sail to the other side of the sea. They still wanted to land. Boom. The bronze dragon and the sapphire dragon collided wildly. Alonso and Andrew were also constantly releasing their fighting skills. In an instant, the entire sky was filled with half thick khaki and the other half cold blue and white. Rocks splashed and hailstones smashed. The battlefield fought from the east to the west without stopping. It was a well-matched situation. The Tulip family's fleet was also quietly retreating, but they retreated to the rear, always watching the battlefield in the sky. Marquis William had the protection of the Dragon Knight and the magic shooter, so he was not afraid at all. He looked at the rare dragon-slaying battle and said, "I never thought that the Grand Duke was also a Dragon Knight. I didn't expect the Grand Duke to deceive everyone. I'm afraid he's forced to do so. In his position, the pressure he faces isn't any less than that of an ordinary knight." Lee Williams seemed to understand the Grand Duke's actions, but he was no longer on the Grand Duke's side. "List, we need to reconsider our next plan." "I know." List's expression was solemn. He wasn't worried about anything. No matter what, he and Achi had nothing to fear when facing the Dragon Knight. It was just that the Grand Duke's identity as a Dragon Knight brought a lot of uncertainty to the situation of the battle, and it was very likely that he would not be able to reap the benefits of a third party. A Dragon Knight was more than enough to protect a duchy. Previously, Alonso's chances of defeating a Grand Duke were 9-1. Now it was 6-4 at most. If they were evenly matched, it was very likely that the battle between the two of them would not escalate to the climax. At most, they would fight once and then find a way to step down before returning to their respective homes. However, the battle escalated in the blink of an eye. The bronze dragon bit the sapphire dragon's neck, and the sapphire dragon did not hesitate to bite the bronze dragon's wing. Dragon blood sprayed out on the spot and splashed into the sea. Alonso brandished the azure dragon spear and continuously stabbed the Grand Duke. The Grand Duke constantly brandished the blue flame greatsword and roared, "Alonso, you and I are both Dragon Knight. There's no benefit in continuing this stalemate. Why don't you stop now? Otherwise, when the Iron and Steel Ridge's Dragon Knight returns, you will fall here." "Cut the crap." Alonso buried his head in his attacks and did not stop. "Although I was deceived by you, old fox, and didn't expect you to succeed in riding a dragon, do you think I've just debuted? Today is destined to be the day of Sapphire's destruction. No one can stop it," I said. The bronze dragon spear overflowed with khaki, and every swing was like lifting a mountain to smash someone. Rumble. Rumble. The Grand Duke struggled to fight back, gnashing his teeth. "Are you crazy? I'm just carrying out the plan to destroy Sapphire." "Crazy." Rumble. Rumble. The battle had reached its climax. The two dragons swayed in the air, dragon blood spilling everywhere, but they did not have the slightest intention of retreating. List's pupils rotated like the Milky Way, his magic eye constantly chasing the two people and the two dragons. He could clearly see that whether it was Alonso or the Grand Duke, what they were using was not a simple high-level battle aura secret book or battle aura secret skill. Instead, it was an offensive move that was combined with the dragon's battle aura. This was the dragon's battle aura secret book that he hoped to innovate. Rough and wild, but combined with the dragon's battle aura, it could exert a powerful attack power. This was obviously a level higher than ordinary battle aura. At this moment, a chi suddenly said, "Brother, I want to collect the dragon blood." List nodded. "Be careful. Collecting dragon blood in the sea, a chi would not be in any danger, and the scattered dragon blood was a priceless treasure that could not be wasted casually. It was fine on land, where it could be integrated into the earth and turned into but in the sea it was difficult to say. He was reluctant to use Leo's blood for a chi to experiment. Moreover, Leo's blood could boil directly into flames, so bronze dragon blood and sapphire dragon blood were the best research materials. A chi locked the position of the dragon-slaying battle in the sky and quickly jumped into the sea to collect the dragon blood. List was still observing the Dragon Knight's fighting style. He was a newly promoted Dragon Knight and also a poor Dragon Knight, so he had to figure everything out by himself. Now that there were two teachers personally participating in the actual combat, providing him with rich experience, he naturally did not want to miss any traces of the battle. Roar! Roar! The dragon's roar resounded between the sky and the sea, echoing in the turbulent waves. Almost all the fleets withdrew from the battlefield, or rather, stayed away from the battlefield. Because the two Dragon Knights seemed to be deliberately avoiding the fleets to prevent accidental damage. With the ferocity of the dragon-slaying battle, even the aftermath of the battle could easily destroy ships and kill ordinary knight. The winter sun fell to the west. In the blink of an eye, it was already afternoon. The two Dragon Knight, with their strong and sustainable combat power, fought for a full hour and a half. The two dragons were wounded and dripping with blood, but there was still no clear winner. The state of the two on the platform of dragon teeth also began to decline, and their attacks began to become chaotic. The Grand Duke roared again. "Alonso, do you want to be buried in this sea with me?" "You're wrong." Alonso suddenly let out a carefree laugh. "Do you really think I'm fighting with my life? Old man, you're always on guard against the Eagle Kingdom, how could I not think of this? You can pretend to be the Lord of the Dragon Domain as a Dragon Knight, so naturally I can also pretend to invade Sapphire alone." "Ha!" The Grand Duke suddenly trembled as if he had discovered something incredible. "You actually have a Dragon Knight following you?" Along with the Grand Duke's shock. In the distant sky, a fast-flying figure appeared from the clouds, rushing toward the two Dragon Knight who were still entangled. As the figure drew closer, it was actually another dragon. A light green dragon only slightly smaller than the sapphire dragon. On the platform of dragon teeth on the dragon's back sat a knight in silver armor, holding a 5-meter-long silver dragon spear in his hand. Seeing this Dragon Knight, the Grand Duke suddenly gritted his teeth and shouted angrily, "Light green sapphire Dragon Knight Carl Luo Violet, very good. Marquis Alonso, I'm here. My dragon spear is already hungry and thirsty, I can't help but slay the dragon." The Dragon Knight Carl Luo Violet on the back of the light green sapphire dragon joined the battle with lightning speed to assassinate the sapphire dragon. Brr. The sapphire dragon let out a miserable cry. The Grand Duke had a hard time dealing with Alonso alone. Now that it was 1 against 2, he was crushed in a moment. He wanted to escape, but because he had consumed too much energy before, he could not escape the entanglement of the new light green sapphire Dragon Knight. He could only constantly resist the fatal attacks of the two Dragon Knight. The dragon's blood dyed the sky red. The sapphire dragon looked like it was about to be seriously injured and defeated or even slain. The battle affected the hearts of all the people watching from afar. The Knight of the Eagle Kingdom cheered and the Knight of the Grand Duchy of Sapphire's heart sank to the bottom of the valley. But Liszt, who was standing on the bow deck of the Tulip, felt his blood surging. However, he felt his blood surging and his limbs and bones seemed to be burning. The situation is really changing in an instant. I thought the Grand Duke was doomed to fail, and it was a good time for me to replace him. I didn't expect the Grand Duke to fish and enforce the law. He had secretly succeeded in riding the dragon. But now the Eagle Kingdom has sent 2 Dragon Knight to destroy Sapphire. He raised his head and his eyes were spewing fire. The smoke mission allowed me to make a choice of position. Now it's time to let the world know that a new Dragon Knight has been born on this sea. It's me, the Fire Dragon Knight Liszt Tulip. The tricolored cloak with a red face, black background and golden edges fluttered, and the Ice Soul Dragon slaying sword trembled. Brr. A domineering dragon roar sounded in his heart. The little fire dragon Leo in the form of magic rushed out of his body, turned into a flame and exploded in the air. Then the flames outlined a fire dragon with a wingspan of 20 meters. The flames slowly extinguished, and the red-black scales completely appeared in everyone's shocked eyes. Not caring about the pairs of eyes on the surrounding ships, List jumped, rode on Leo's back, and instantly entered Dragon Rider mode. The world became clearer and brighter. Chapter 7:12. The Bite of the Three-Headed Dragon. The violent attack of the Three-Dragon Knight. The scene of the dragon's blood spraying and fighting spirit gushing mixed and rendered everyone's heart. Whether it was the ordinary knight of the Eagle Kingdom fleet or the ordinary knight of the Grand Duchy of Sapphire, they all stood on the side of the ship and tried their best to see the battle of the dragons slaying in the distance. Many people saw a real dragon for the first time. That kind of breathtaking beauty, that kind of strong and vigorous body, all declared that the dragon, as a creature at the top of the food chain, was a noble and unattainable representative. However, today, a battle of the dragon slaying came early, and such a bloody scene took place in front of everyone. The Bronze Dragon Knight Alonso Cyclamen and the Light Green Sapphire Dragon Knight Carl Low Violet teamed up to slaughter the Sapphire Dragon Knight Andrew Sapphire. Blood splashed in the sky. Sapphire, it's time for the curtain call. On the bow of the Eagle Kingdom fleet, many nobles sighed with emotion. Someone's face showed a crazy expression. It should have been like this long ago. Sapphire's fly also has this day. Sapphire had been founded for more than 150 years. Almost half of the year, it would launch an expansion order to harass the hinterland of the Eagle Kingdom's coastline, robbing like flies and locusts. It could be said that because of the existence of the Grand Duchy of Sapphire, a large area of fertile land along the coastline of the Eagle Kingdom had become a land of sin. Mercenaries burned and looted everywhere, and serfs were traded everywhere. Many lords suffered great losses because of this, or were forced to participate in these evil activities, and could only be beaten without fighting back. However, now it was finally time for revenge. This battle of the dragon slaying was the time for the Eagle Kingdom's orders of chivalry to massacre every island of Sapphire. The Sapphire Dragon is about to fall. Witnessing the death of a dragon, this is the blessing of the knight's glory. Andrew Sapphire, such a resounding name, known as the Master of the Boundless Sea, will this day come. Ah! Massacre Sapphire. My spear is already thirsty. The knight of the Eagle Kingdom was wantonly excited, laughing and waiting. Everyone was fantasizing about the upcoming bloody feast of Sapphire, and they must eat until their mouths were full of oil. Sapphire's fleet was the complete opposite. The knight on the ship was pale and bitter. They looked at the dragon-slaying battle in the sky, watched the Sapphire Dragon's wounds increase, and heard the Grand Duke's angry roar. His faith was crumbling bit by bit. The Knight of Sapphire had been able to develop steadily over the years because of the advantages of the ship and the protection of the Sapphire Dragon. However, the advantage of ships had been wiped out, and the Eagle Kingdom had actually built such a huge fleet. Now, even the pillar of the Grand Duchy, the Sapphire Dragon, was about to be slaughtered. First Prince Anthony Sapphire's limbs turned cold. He stood at the bow of the ship and looked at the sky. His voice began to tremble. How could this be? How could this be? How could the Iron and Steel Ridge let the two Dragon Knight of the Eagle Kingdom break away from the confrontation? What are they doing? He knew what his father was planning. Ever since Marquis Bull rebelled and plotted to slaughter the dragon, the Sapphire family had anticipated that all of this was a conspiracy of the Eagle Kingdom, so they had to make a plan. After paying a sufficient price, the Grand Duke finally became a Dragon Knight and could once again protect the safety of the duchy. But he never expected that the Eagle Kingdom would send out such a big move. Two Dragon Knight. Aren't they afraid of border unrest? The Iron and Steel Ridge, the Furnace Castle, and the two southern kingdoms are all bordering the Eagle Kingdom. They need a Dragon Knight to guard the border. How could they dispatch two Dragon Knight for the battle of dragon slaying? How dare they do this? Alonso is stationed in the northern border of the Eagle Kingdom, confronting the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom. Carl Law is stationed in the western border of the Eagle Kingdom, confronting the Blast Furnace Castle Kingdom. Anthony, I don't know how they let the two Dragon Knight withdraw from the front line, but it has become a fait accompli. What we need to do is to discuss what to do next. Nesta Magnolia came over, put his hand on the shoulder of the first prince and patted him hard. The first prince took a deep breath and tried to calm himself down. Uncle, my father will be fine. Nesta was silent for a moment, but he bit the bullet and said, We can't interfere in the battle of dragon slaying at all. In any case, the outcome is obvious. As the heir of the Sapphire family, you need to shoulder the responsibility that belongs to you. This is not the time to be weak. Once the battle of dragon slaying is over, Sapphire's misfortune will come. The glory of the night will no longer care for us. Anthony said with difficulty, so what should I do? You have to have the determination to break your wrist. Make a decision? The fleet is about to dock. I believe that no matter what decision you make, the Grand Duke will not blame you because you are now shouldering the life and death of the Sapphire family. Nesta stared at the first prince sternly. The Grand Duke's defeat was a foregone conclusion. The first prince wanted to say something several times, but he couldn't say it. But under the oppression of Nesta's gaze, he still ordered with difficulty, send a message to all fleets, disperse, retreat, and abandon Iron Hoof Island. But before he could finish his sentence, suddenly, a loud and majestic dragon roar interrupted what he was about to say. The first prince, Nesta, and others all turned their heads and looked in the direction of the sound. They saw a flame burst over a fleet in the distance, and then the figure of a dragon was outlined in the flame. An indistinct knight jumped onto the back of the red-black dragon. Then he rushed into the sky and rushed to the scene of the battle of dragon slaying, which was 2 against 1. That's another dragon. Oh my god, another dragon knight. The 4th dragon knight. Looks like a fire dragon. Incredible, how did this dragon appear? The knight on the ship exclaimed one after another. Some were stunned, some were surprised, some were nervous, and some were pleasantly surprised. The first prince clenched his fist, feeling mixed feelings. Who is this dragon knight? Is he from the Eagle Kingdom or the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom? Is he here to support us? Who can tell me? Nesta opened his mouth but he couldn't speak. He could only imitate the ordinary knight, stretching his neck and looking at the fire dragon, which was not too big, carrying an unknown knight and quickly rushing into the battlefield. Suddenly, someone said, that dragon knight seems to have appeared from the Tulip family's fleet. But this voice was quickly drowned out by the exclamations of the crowd. After the dragon knight joined the battlefield, the bronze dragon knight and light green sapphire dragon knight, who were slaughtering the sapphire dragon knight, were all stunned. They planned the battle of dragon slaying perfectly. There would not be a 4th dragon knight in this sea for a short time. Moreover, it was a fire dragon knight that had never appeared in the records. Andrew Sapphire didn't have time to be stunned and quickly cried for help in a hoarse voice, Fire Dragon Knight, please save me. Riding on the back of the fire dragon Leo, the Dragon Knight resonance was activated. Liszt had already calmed his restless emotions, and there was pride in his calmness. As a Dragon Knight, it was necessary to appear in such a big scene. Chapter 7:13. Get lost. It was said in a domineering manner. This was not Liszt's original style, but after the mind and soul were harmonized, some of Leo's nature was integrated. The evil dragon was the nature of the elemental dragon. This evil dragon was mainly evil, domineering, and arrogant. Fortunately, Liszt was an adult, and was only slightly affected by Leo's nature. Roar. Leo also roared in a domineering manner. Towards the bronze dragon, the light green gem dragon, and the sapphire dragon. Although it was only a young dragon, it had the courage to challenge the 3 dragons at the same time. Under the red-black scales, there were constantly burning sparks, changing between light and dark like breathing, making Leo even more majestic. Although its wingspan was only 20 meters, the smallest among the 4 dragons, its ferocious appearance was far more domineering than the other 3 dragons. Whether it was the metal dragon or the gem dragon, they were all very beautiful dragons. Leo's beauty was not beauty, but the beauty of explosive power outlined by the scales, lines, and edges. In the face of this sudden fire dragon knight, Andrew Sapphire was greatly relieved. From the other party's words, he had already understood that this was the dragon knight who came to support him. Alonso Cyclamen and Carl Low Violet's faces quickly darkened. Sapphire Grand Duke's change from Dragon City Lord to Dragon Knight did not surprise them much. It was all expected. But the sudden appearance of the Fire Dragon Knight had the ability to act as a disruptor and change the situation of the war. And from the moment the other party said, "Get lost," there was no room for reconciliation. Marquis Alonso, you hold Andrew, the Sapphire Dragon must die. Carl Lowe gave up on slaughtering the Sapphire Dragon and directly rode the light green gem dragon to the front of the Fire Dragon to confront Liszt. The adult Fire Dragon is the most powerful evil dragon, and it is indeed a deterrent, but you are just riding a young dragon. This is not a disruption but a death wish. Are you ignoring my warning? List's eyes flickered with vortexes that resembled the galaxies of the universe. They were deep, quiet, and seemed to be able to see through everything. In the vision of the dragon eyes, the condition of the three-headed dragon and the three-knight was exceptionally clear. Every trace of magical energy and battle energy could not escape his notice. The sapphire dragon was already seriously injured, and the bronze dragon was not much better. Only the light green gemstone dragon was still brimming with magic power. The dragon knight on its back, Carl Violet, was also brimming with purple combat aura. He was a thunder-type dragon knight, and his mount was an adult light green gemstone dragon. He was definitely powerful. He pointed his 5-meter-long spear at List and shouted coldly, "Fire Dragon Knight, report your name. If you want to die, I can only fulfill your wish." Roar. Leo roared angrily. He did not like people threatening him like this. List also did not allow it, but he did not care about the verbal battle. After all, the Dragon Knight had to rely on his strength to speak, and this would be his opening remarks. "My name is List Tulip. You still have time to choose to scram or stay in this sea forever." List Tulip. The Grand Duke, who was panting on the dragon, suddenly trembled. He looked at the awe-inspiring Fire Dragon Knight in disbelief. His cloak fluttered in the wind like a burning flame. List Tulip, the second son of his follower, Lee William Tulip, the outstanding 18-year-old Ghost Blade inheritor. I see. He is not the inheritor of the Ghost Blade. He is the Fire Dragon Knight. The Grand Duke heaved a sigh of relief when he realized this. With Lee William's relationship with him, the hibernating Dragon Knights would definitely stand on his side. No matter what the future would be. At this moment he understood that as long as List did not collapse quickly, Sapphire would be saved. Alonso, who was on the opposite side, was equally shocked. He stared, trying to remember the handsome face under the mithril helmet. "So it is you, the one who robbed the iron mine of my trapped dragon mountain and captured my follower. I thought you were just an inheritor of the ancient warrior and was ready to recruit you as my follower after the dragon-slaying battle. I did not expect you to be the Fire Dragon Knight. You are List." Carl Law had obviously heard of this name. 18 years old? Sure enough, a young man riding a young fire dragon has a bright future. Although I am a little hot-tempered, I feel that I have a vague love for talent. List, I will give you a choice. Seek refuge with the Eagle Kingdom, and you will enjoy the treatment of conquering the continent. Give me a piece of land as a duchy? List laughed. He was the Dragon Knight with several dragons on his back. A duchy was just a transition, and there was a chance to build a kingdom directly. Such an attitude. Seeing this, Carl Law no longer said anything about seeking refuge. It seems that you are determined to die. Riding a dragon at the age of 18, this is a genius. Unfortunately, you probably do not know what the War of the Dragon Knight is like. Make it quick, Marquis Carl Law, Alonso reminded him. No answer. He just nodded. He seemed to understand that the villain died of talking too much. After a few words, he started fighting without the slightest interest in chatting. In the next moment, Carl Law's aura had skyrocketed. The light green gem dragon he was riding roared and rushed directly to List. The silver dragon spear rippled with thunder attribute dragon fighting energy and stabbed out. Rumble. Thunder galloped straight to Leo. List's eyes were cold. He urged Leo to dodge urgently. At the same time he flapped his wings and charged. The Ice Soul Dragon Slaying Sword was wrapped in his surging fire attribute fighting energy. He quickly counterattacked with the move Scorching Sunday. This was the first time he participated in the War of the Dragon Knight. He was not nervous, only hot-blooded. Like Leo, his body seemed to start burning. Thunder brushed past him and the scorching sun did not hit him. He and the light green gem Dragon Knight tested each other's moves. Then he launched a new round of attacks. Even without the secret book of dragon fighting energy, List was not afraid at all. He and Leo continuously attacked the light green gem Dragon Knight. Pucci. The silver spear suddenly changed direction like lightning and accurately stabbed the side of Leo's back, piercing a big hole. No blood flowed out, only the rising flames. Roar. Leo was in pain. List also felt the burning pain. He suddenly turned around and infused the fire attribute dragon fighting energy into the big blue sword in his hand. The Ice Soul Dragon Slaying Sword fiercely slashed out with the move Burning Red Sunset. Burning Red Sun was his most powerful attack now. Boom. The flames burned in a fan shape, but they only grazed the light green gem dragon's skin. This adult dragon was 40 meters long and had a wingspan of 40 meters. It was agile and it cooperated very well with Carl. After a few tests, It figured out his and Leo's moves and began to suppress them. Bang! The light green gem dragon swung its huge body and hit Leo's abdomen with its hard back, causing Leo to flip in the air. List also felt dizzy. There was still a huge gap between a young dragon and an adult dragon. Even if Leo was a powerful elemental dragon, he could not make up for the age gap. His physical attributes had not reached the peak yet. It was like a puppy of the wolf dog breed fighting against a toy poodle. An adult wolf dog might only need to bite a toy poodle, but when it was still a puppy it could not even walk, let alone fight. It could only let the toy poodle be arrogant. I said, you are here to die. After Carl gained the upper hand, his tone became more and more proud. However, his movements did not slow down at all. He continued to use the dragon fighting energy and the light green gem dragon's adult body to bully List and Leo. List did not say a word and stubbornly resisted the light green gem dragon knight's oppression. While he was being suppressed, he familiarized himself with the dragon knight's fighting style. At the same time, there was no panic in his eyes, as if he had guessed this situation from the beginning. He retreated as he fought, gradually luring the light green gemstone dragon knight to the surface of the sea, even though he still had Leo's cruel side. Although he had Leo's cruel side in his heart, it was undeniable that List's greatest strength was his clear mind. Chapter 7:14. This chapter is a reward for the leader evil warding E. It will be 1 chapter for now and 5 more chapters will be added later. It was normal for a young fire dragon and a dragon knight who did not know the dragon fighting secret manual to lose to an adult light emerald dragon and a dragon knight who was proficient in the dragon fighting secret manual. List did not feel any pressure about this. Although he was not a true dragon knight with an inheritance, he dared to challenge 3 dragon knights alone because everything was under his control since the beginning of this dragon-slaying battle. He was not fighting alone. The magic shooter Achi was his important helper. Therefore, in the process of fighting and retreating with the light emerald dragon knight, he constantly adapted and quickly learned the opponent's fighting style, and used this to improve his resonance with Leo's dragon knight. His combat power was constantly improving, and his combat experience was skyrocketing. He had a great understanding of the dragon knight's fighting style. These were not skills that could be easily learned alone or by watching others fight. Although he did not have any dragon fighting secret manual yet, he felt that after mastering more combat experience, creating his own dragon fighting secret manual would not be difficult at all. Do you know fear now? Carl Low Violet's momentum was like a rainbow. He had firmly grasped the situation of the war, so he did not mind saying a few high-spirited words to provoke List. Aren't you arrogant and trying to be a disruptor? Now you can try to disrupt me again. In a dragon-slaying battle, killing 1 dragon is normal. Killing 2 dragons is a legend. List did not speak, nor did he care to speak. He had to multitask. While passively defending and learning to fight, he actively guided and changed the position of the battlefield. His firm conviction could not be shaken by mere verbal words. Before he rode a dragon, he was also crazily suppressed in the battle with the domain knight, Marquis Nuteo. In the end, he relied on his archery to reverse the situation. After that, no one remembered how he was crushed and chased by Marquis Nuteo. They only remembered how he defeated the Roaring Orders of Chivalry and how he defeated the Domain Knight. There was no addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, only the winner takes all. In the sea below him, Achi was quietly observing the dragon-slaying battle, locking onto the figure of the light green gemstone dragon. All it took was a signal and Achi would release powerful magic. She didn't need to defeat Carl Luo, she just needed to lock onto the light green gemstone dragon for a moment and by List time to kill it. Deborah Rainflower Stone. The expression on his face was twisted as if he had been brought into the role of the light green sapphire dragon knight. He muttered to himself, that's it. Defeat him, defeat him. Kill fire dragon and destroy sapphire. Seeing the light green gem dragon knight pushing the fire dragon towards the sea, his expression was ferocious and he was excited. Just like how Marquis Wild Tao became the laughingstock of the Eagle Kingdom, as a young sword saint, he was easily captured by his opponent and occupied his castle in an instant. He also became the laughingstock of the Roaring Estuary. The Yuhua Shi family's face was completely thrown away by this uncle and nephew duo. Therefore, when Alonso summoned orders of chivalry to participate in the war, the uncle and nephew duo did not hesitate to participate, just to wash away their shame. However, they died before they could succeed, and Marquis Wild Tao was captured again in front of everyone's eyes. Now, even if they won the war, the Yuhua Shi family could no longer raise their heads. A dignified domain knight was actually captured twice, which made people laugh their heads off. He didn't know that the Fire Dragon Knight was List. He only knew that after the destruction of Sapphire, he could take advantage of the chaos to rescue Marquis Wild Tao and save some face. Sapphire flies and maggots, no one can stop your destruction. When the dragon-slaying battle is over, I, the river-slaying sword Saint Deborah, will behead the heads of 1,000 knight to wash away the shame given to the family. The flagship of the palace's fast-sailing ship. The eldest prince was so nervous that he didn't dare to breathe loudly, for fear that his breathing would affect the dragon-slaying battle in the distant sky. His father was riding the Sapphire Dragon and was struggling to resist the attack of the Bronze Dragon Knight. The Sapphire Dragon was constantly bleeding, and its breath was constantly weakening. It seemed to be on the verge of collapse. Fortunately, Alonso can't make it. His attack is weak and father can still hold on for a while. He simply glanced at the battle between the Sapphire Dragon Knight and the Bronze Dragon Knight. He cast his gaze on the battle scene where the light green Sapphire Dragon Knight suppressed the Fire Dragon Knight. Although I don't know which Dragon Knight Royal Highness you are, I hope that you can hold on. The survival of Sapphire depends on you. Beside him, Nesta Granhua Huilan was also very nervous. Everyone could see that the Grand Duke's side was like a lamp that had run out of oil. The Fire Dragon Knight was also in a crisis. The Fire Dragon, which was obviously a young dragon, was not the opponent of the adult Bronze Dragon. Just its size alone was 1 or 2 times smaller. Anthony were almost at the shore. Nesta suddenly found that the fleet had sailed to the coastline. I know. The decision to be made still has to be made. The Fire Dragon Knight can't hold on any longer. He is about to fall into the sea. Once he falls into the sea with the elemental attribute of the Fire Dragon, I'm afraid he will lose miserably. The eldest prince stretched out his hand to interrupt Nesta. His face was full of entanglement and expectation. Wait. He was waiting. Everyone was waiting. The Knight of the Eagle Kingdom stood at the bow of the ship and looked into the distance, looking forward to their kingdom's Dragon Knight to kill the 2 Sapphire Dragon Knight. Complete the conquest of Sapphire. Burn, kill, rob, plunder, revenge for more than 150 years of humiliation. Scared me. I thought how fierce the Fire Dragon Knight was, but it turns out to be nothing more than this. Witness the battle of 4 Dragon Knights, witness the fall of 2 dragons and have no more regrets in this life. Glory to the Knight, our Dragon Knight is invincible. His Highness Alonso and His Highness Carl Luo are mighty and domineering. The flies of Sapphire are destined to be flies. On the contrary, the Sapphire fleet was silent. No one was in the mood to talk. When the Fire Dragon appeared, they were shocked and surprised. They felt that everything had returned to the familiar track. No one could defeat the Grand Duchy of Sapphire. However, at this moment, the Grand Duke's dragon was still bleeding, and the Fire Dragon Knight was constantly beaten by the light green Sapphire Dragon. It was not as cool as it was when it appeared. Do your best. You can't die. List didn't know what the people watching in the distance thought. He didn't care whether others were looking forward to it or cursing it, scolding it or encouraging it. He just carried out his plan seriously. During the half-hour battle, even if Leo did not bleed, his breath had seriously dropped, and he was constantly injured under the attacks of Carl Luo. But it was all worth it. Because he had successfully lowered the position of the battlefield to less than 100 meters above sea level, as if he sensed that a chi was waiting for his signal on the sea. He suddenly rode Leo to a roll and avoided the impact of the silver dragon spear. Then Leo suddenly let out a sharp howl. This howl caused the surface of the sea to tremble and emitted a unique rhythm. Almost as soon as the howl reached the sea, the dragon's eye orbit saw countless blue and white magic condensing in the sea, forming a huge pattern similar to a magic array. The next moment, countless water columns, blades and whirlpools rose from the sea, and countless water tornadoes suddenly appeared in the air. These powerful illusions condensed by magic had only one goal: Carl Luo, who was chasing after List. Caught off guard, Carl Luo did not react at all and was hit by these powerful spells. The water ring bound the light green Sapphire Dragon's body, and the water columns and blades kept hitting it. The invisible water currents, condensed by magic, had a stronger impact than steel. If it was a prepared Dragon Knight, it would not be difficult to avoid the seemingly large area of effect, but in fact the attacks were relatively loose. However, Carl Luo was not prepared at all. His eyes widened. This is... Just as he exclaimed, the light green Sapphire Dragon was bombarded by magic and rolled around randomly, dizzy and unable to make any defensive movements. when the man and the dragon were just a little awake and ready to struggle out of the magic. List, whose eyes were fiery, had already ridden Leo to easily dodge the aftermath of the magic and rushed to the side of the light green sapphire dragon. The Ice Soul Dragon slaying sword surged with surging fire attribute dragon fighting energy, and forcibly stabbed into the light green sapphire dragon's shoulder blade, and then with the help of Leo's impact, opened a huge wound. Warm dragon blood spurted, sprayed on List's head and face, and then was burned by the flames, sprinkling down. Roar! The light green sapphire dragon let out a loud scream, and the sound could be heard for dozens of miles. Chapter 7:15. This chapter is The Ninth Wangye's Wife. The terrifying magic impact reversed the battle situation. As List said those words to increase his momentum, he urged Leo to attack the light green gemstone dragon knight again. Sleep with her while she's drunk. Cough cough. Take advantage of the enemy's weakness had always been List's personal fighting style. As long as he seized the opportunity, he would not delay for even a moment. He would just bombard it. At this moment, the light green gemstone dragon knight was in a passive position. The ever-present violent magic, combined with the fire dragon knight's ability to avoid magic from the dragon's eyes, was simply unstoppable. The Ice Soul Dragon slaying sword appeared and disappeared mysteriously, always leaving wounds on the light green gemstone dragon. The seemingly terrible wounds might not be big for a dragon, but the accumulated damage caused by the wounds would continue to deepen as time passed. Why is this happening? What's going on? Carl's mind was filled with confusion. He could never imagine how the situation had turned out like this. He was clearly killing the fire dragon knight in an imposing manner, but in the blink of an eye he had become the target of abuse. Every sword strike on the light green gemstone dragon was no different from hitting him. It was so painful that it was hard to breathe, but everything happened too fast for him to react. Pucci. List stabbed the light green gemstone dragon again, which was being torn apart by the water spell, a water ring. It was like a heavy sword stabbing into Carl's heart. Leo also took the opportunity to step on the light green gemstone dragon and kick it into the sea again. The light green gemstone dragon had no way to fight back. It could only keep flapping its wings to prevent falling into the sea. Both it and Carl knew that if they fell into the sea, they would most likely lose their lives. The magic came from the sea and no one knew which magician had released it. Carl had never seen such violent magic. It was definitely not something an archmage could release. However, other than archmages, it seemed that only sea monsters could release such powerful magic. Is there a powerful sea monster hiding in the sea? A high-level sea monster? Or a super sea monster? Or even a super dragon? Lesser sea dragon? Countless doubts flashed through his mind, but he didn't have the time to think deeply about them. This was because List's attacks combined with the storm of attacks made it almost impossible for him to breathe. The light green gemstone dragon's thoughts began to take over. Run. At this moment, the gemstone dragon only wanted to escape. It instinctively hated elemental dragons, and it was even more afraid of the unknown attacks under the sea. If it was not necessary, it did not want to fight on the sea. Boom. The spell struck again, and the light green gem dragon's abdomen was hit by the water spell, powerful pillar of water. Its internal organs almost turned upside down, and it vomited all the food it had eaten for the past few days. However, before the light green gem dragon could react, the fire dragon's aura descended, and the dragon's claws grabbed its wings and tore them apart. Roar! Roar! 2 dragon roars rang out. One was a miserable shriek and the other was excited. Leo, flip over. I want to kill Carl Luo. List was extremely calm amidst his excitement. He accurately observed the situation of the battle and discovered that at this moment, the light green gemstone dragon that was screaming in pain had arched its neck, exposing Carl Luo Violet on the Dragonfang platform. An opportunity. Leo's heart moved and he quickly flipped his body. This put List in a position where he could attack Carl Luo. The Ice Soul Dragon slaying sword quickly swung out, and a red cloud burned and gushed out, accurately hitting Carl Luo's back. Pucci. Carl Luo raised his head and spat out a mouthful of blood. The silver spear in his hand became unstable and it fell straight down. No. Carl Luo endured the injuries on his body and urged the light green gem dragon to descend, trying to grab his silver dragon spear back. However, List would not give up this opportunity. He reflexively switched to the swift shadow bow, and 3 arrows shot out consecutively, not at the person but at the silver dragon spear. With a clang, the silver dragon spear was sent flying, drawing a parabola as it fell into the sea. Then he quickly put away the swift shadow bow, clenched the ice soul dragon slaying sword, and continued to attack the light green gem dragon knight. This was the time. After losing his weapon, under the continuous baptism of magic and the dragon knight's continuous stabbing, Carl Lowe finally accepted his fate and roared, "Alonso, save me!" The short encounter made him tremble with fear, and he almost peed his pants. Things shouldn't be like this. However, reality was like this. He was previously suppressed by the fire dragon knight List Tulip until he was thrown into disarray. This type of powerful contrast made it impossible for him to calm down, and he experienced the treatment that the Sapphire Grand Duke previously enjoyed, the bitterness of fighting 1 against 2. That was why he could only open his mouth in humiliation, just like when the Grand Duke saw the Fire Dragon Knight and opened his mouth in humiliation. Persevere, Carl Lowe. The Bronze Dragon Knight Alonso Cyclamen's roar could be heard. He had no choice but to abandon the tottering Sapphire Grand Duke and choose to save the light green gem dragon knight. The exhausted bronze dragon stirred up his remaining strength and rushed into the baptism of magic on the sea. The Sapphire Grand Duke shouted hoarsely, "List, I'm coming too. Tell your friend not to hit me." The Grand Duke did not dare not come. Once List was defeated, he would also suffer, even if the Sapphire Grand Duke's condition was extremely poor. Fortunately, he saw hope. Although the Fire Dragon Knight List was immature, he still had a powerful fighting strength in the sea, and it seemed that he was not much worse than the Dragon Knight. Now it was a 3 against 2 situation. Perseverance was victory. The 4 dragons all rushed into the baptism of magic on the battlefield. In order to maintain the accuracy and strength of the magic, a chi had to rise from the sea. Her feet stepped on the large white scallop, and her slender arms with the sapphire ring and the space ring constantly lifted to release magic. Huge waves roared, water columns rose into the air, and the misty water vapor created a rainbow, shining in the west slanting sun. At this moment, her figure was discovered by the 3 dragon knight in turn. Although her petite body was shrouded in a magic cloak, her identity could not help but be associated with a legend. A legendary profession that had not appeared for many years, a magic shooter who was on par with the dragon knight in terms of strength. How is this possible? Magic shooter. Why would there be a new dragon knight and a legendary magic shooter in this sea? Carl Law and Alonso could not accept it. Even the Sapphire Grand Duke was stunned. List actually has a magic shooter friend. The surprise did not last long because the battle was still fierce. The addition of the Bronze Dragon Knight did not affect List's performance. He still caught the light green Sapphire Dragon Knight and bombarded it indiscriminately, constantly waving the Ice Soul Dragon slaying sword to kill it. He was not willing to change his target until he completely defeated the opponent. The key was to persevere. He must not pick up sesame seeds and lose watermelons. Also, through the observation of the dragon's eyes, he found that Carl Law was much weaker than Alonso. Alonso should be a veteran dragon knight, while Carl Law was a new dragon knight. There were still traces of immaturity in his fighting style. This kind of dragon knight was the most likely. Chapter 7:16. This chapter is Immortal Killer Move, Myriad Self, bonus update. The true dragon knight's mind and soul were one, and their thoughts were intertwined and synchronized. Little fire dragon Leo got more and more excited as he fought. Although his body was already heavily fatigued, he was still excitedly charging back and forth. Fighting was his nature, plundering and killing were his instincts. Being an evil dragon was his true future. List was naturally affected and focused on killing Carl Violet. Achi could understand List's thoughts. Seeing that List was focused on killing Carl Violet, she continued to release magic to attack the light green gem dragon. At the same time, she restrained the Bronze Dragon Knight and provided assistance to Sapphire Grand Duke. Together they restrained Alonso. The waterspout carried a white scallop, and Achi stood on it like a goddess in the center of the storm, but her expression under the hood could not be seen. They could only see her slender and fair wrists turning over and over, casting violent water magic one after another. She controlled everything on the surface of the sea, but no dragon knight could attack her. The Bronze Dragon Knight Alonso wanted to attack her, but the Sapphire Grand Duke kept harassing him, coupled with Achi's constant change of position and the violent output of magic. Alonso, who was already exhausted, could not get close to the surface of the sea, and he did not dare to. Magic Shooter had been a legend for many years, and he was afraid that this unknown magic shooter would suddenly go berserk and cast more powerful magic to keep him in the sea. He was a dragon knight in the prime of his life, and he still had a lot of time to enjoy his youth. He did not want to become the background of List or Achi's famous battle. "Alonso, save me!" Carl Luo shouted again, and he was already trembling in fear. He had never seen such a bloodthirsty dragon knight, who chased him like a hyena. The knight was only 18 years old and had never practiced the dragon battle aura. The damage caused by each of his attacks could not be said to be too great, but the combination of magic and battle aura was enough to make him run for his life. The light green gemstone dragon mount had already lost a lot of dragon blood, and its vitality was greatly damaged. Every time it was entangled, it would lose a large portion of its strength. The most important thing was that he couldn't fight back, so he couldn't see any hope of escaping. The more he thought about it, the more panicked he became. The more he panicked, the more he struggled. The more he struggled, the more he could not escape Achi's magic and List's attack. "Hold on, Carl Luo. Don't panic." Alonso roared again and again from atop the bronze dragon's back. He couldn't rush over to save Carl Law right away, so he could only remind Carl Law not to panic. As long as he calmed down with the Dragon Knight's powerful abilities, it would not be difficult for him to escape with just a small price to pay. Even a lizard could cut off its tail to survive, let alone a dragon with peak strength. "I can't hold on any longer," Carl Luo bellowed. If it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't hold on any longer, he wouldn't have asked for help. At this moment, Alonso only knew how to hold on. His heart was sinking and he was already panicking. Even the spiritual union between him and the light emerald dragon was fluctuating violently. The conversation between Carl Luo and Alonso. List heard it clearly as the roar of a dragon. After all, the Dragon Knight resonance was a special state of two-way blessing. The human speech and the dragon's roar would interfere with each other. The words spoken by the human seemed to come from the dragon's mouth, and they could also be heard more than 10 miles away. Panicking just like that? List laughed in his heart. As a novice Dragon Knight, he didn't even know the secret book of Dragon Chi, but he could still fight calmly. The other party might also be a new Dragon Knight, but at least he had been a Dragon Knight for several years. He was very skilled in the secret book of Dragon Chi, but he panicked in the face of this little danger. This kind of mentality would never make a difference. He would only be a weak chicken. Thinking of this, List couldn't help but laugh like a villain boss. "Grand Duke Achi, stop Alonso for me. I'm going to tear Carl Luo apart right now." Sapphire Grand Duke was unbearably tired. His voice was so hoarse that he could hardly speak, but he still managed to echo, "Don't worry, even if I have to drag my life down by 10 years, I'll stop Alonso." Achi was even more concise. "Brother, do it." A few simple words. It was more of List bluffing. However, in Carl Luo's ears, it was no less than thunder. There was only one thought flashing in his mind. "I'm going to be torn apart." Not everyone could face death calmly. Even if List boasted that he had died once, he still feared death and would unconsciously panic when he encountered a crisis. Carl Luo was clearly such a person. He was already panicking enough, and after being frightened by List, he immediately panicked to the extreme and almost peed his pants. At this time, he didn't know if there was a deviation in the human and dragon's thinking. The light green gemstone dragon's body was clearly sluggish, allowing the magic to bombard the softest part of the dragon's abdomen. Seeing such an opportunity, List naturally would not let it go. Charge! The Ice Soul Dragon slaying sword danced and slashed fiercely. The violent fire attribute Dragon Chi blasted the light green gemstone dragon's scales away, revealing a bloody wound. However, not only did the light green gemstone dragon not respond, but its limbs even began to show signs of twitching, and even its wings were malfunctioning. Carl Luo's body also became very stiff and motionless. He didn't know what happened to the other party, but List knew that this was an opportunity that could not be missed. "Leo! Flip one more time. Roar!" The response was a loud dragon roar. Leo suddenly flipped his body and brushed past the light green gemstone dragon's back. List clenched the azure sword in his hand. In the process of crossing with Carl Luo, he suddenly pushed the sword out and accurately inserted it into the gap of Carl Luo's armor. The sound of the blade entering the body was especially crisp. The wound was across the chest and abdomen. Flames rose from the blade and crazily roasted the wound like roasted meat. Then, it was pulled out with a bit of cooked meat that emitted a little fragrance. When he pulled out the Ice Soul Dragon slaying sword, the light green gemstone dragon seemed to have regained its freedom in an instant. Its body quickly recovered and its wings frantically flapped. It violently shrank and stretched in the air to break free from the restraints of the water ring. Ignoring the exploding wounds all over its body, it slammed into a powerful water column. Boom bang. Countless streams of dragon blood spurted out from the wound. The light green gemstone dragon used the impact of the powerful water column to successfully escape from the tear of the water ring released by Chi again. Then it took the initiative to hit the magic several times, constantly twisting its body, and forcibly relied on the impact of the magic to get rid of List's subsequent pursuit. At this moment, Carl Luo Violet on its back seemed to have broken the string. When the light green gemstone dragon flipped its body, he fell directly, like a free fall into the sea. There was a little splash. Even though List was filled with Leo's cruel thoughts, he was still stunned by this unbelievable scene. Carl Luo died just like that, stabbed to death by my sword? When he came back to his senses, the light green gemstone dragon had already left the battlefield of the magic baptism. It dragged its broken body and quickly fled while bleeding. Chapter 717. It felt uncomfortable all over. The light green gemstone dragon's head was dizzy, but it did not dare to stop at all. Its body was already broken, and the dragon knight, who was one with its soul, had died on the spot. This was the most miserable experience in its more than 400 years of dragon life. Even when it was hiding from place to place during its childhood, it had never been so difficult. It did not like the sea. But because of Carl Law and the Eagle Kingdom, it had to fly thousands of miles across the sea to come here for a bloody battle. If it had won, it could have enjoyed the fruits of victory. Unfortunately, it failed miserably, and even it almost died on the battlefield. The magic shooter who stepped on the shell and the crazy fire dragon knight both made its heart palpitate. Carl Law is a waste. If it wasn't for the dragon knight backup plan, how could I be willing to let such a waste cultivate it in a greenhouse ride? Fighting side by side with him, I can't exert my strength at all. Hateful, hateful. Roar. The light green gemstone dragon's heart flashed with anger, and it opened its mouth to let out a roar. But it affected the wound on its neck, and another mass of dragon blood spurted out. It was so scared that it closed its mouth tightly, afraid that it would really die from excessive blood loss. Even a dragon standing at the peak of power was afraid of death. At least in its prime, the light green gemstone dragon did not want to die. I must leave. Leave here, return to the Eagle Kingdom. I need to recuperate now. Only the Eagle Kingdom can provide me with the best shelter. The light green gemstone dragon kept flying, but its wings were getting heavier and heavier, and its eyelids were becoming heavier. It wanted to fly in the clouds. But its body kept falling, and it could only fly at a place not high above the sea. Every flap of its wings caused a tearing pain to its body. Although the pain was uncomfortable, it still could not overcome the slowly attacking drowsiness. I can't sleep. I will really die if I fall into the sea. The light green gemstone dragon kept reminding itself, trying to drive away the drowsiness and pull itself together. But the more it struggled, the more powerless it felt to resist. Just like in the previous magic baptism battlefield, because of Carl Law's panic struggle, it fell into the double attack of the magic shooter and the dragon knight and could not break free. It did not know how long it flew. The light green gemstone dragon only knew that the sky was dark and the stars were blinking in the clouds. Without nourishment, its body couldn't recover, and flying consumed a lot of energy. It could feel itself getting weaker and slower. The drowsiness took advantage of this and almost made it fall asleep in the air. Memories from childhood to adulthood flashed through his mind like a cursory glance at flowers on horseback. The hesitation and curiosity towards the world when he was born, the life of hiding in the wild forest when he was young, and the encounter with the knight of the Eagle Kingdom when he was about to become an adult. It was not a happy encounter. The knight and his team came to capture it, but in the end it fell into the trap set by the knight. It held its head high and refused to submit. However, he was no match for the other party's sugar-coated bullets. He lost himself in the countless magic potions, delicacies and bone-flavored wine, allowing the knight to ride on the dragon-tooth platform. After the soul battle, it became the mount of the knight. Then they fought together for 60 years. In the end, the knight died of old age and he lived in the dragon nest built by the Eagle Kingdom, becoming the dragon of protection of the kingdom. When a dragon knight candidate with excellent qualifications passed the test he set, he could easily have a soul battle. In the next 300 years, it worked with a total of 4 dragon knight, and Carl Law was the 6th who had just worked with him. These knights' qualifications are getting worse with each generation. A qualified dragon knight can't be raised in a greenhouse. The light green gemstone dragon no longer cared about the relationship between the dragon and the knight. Perhaps it still missed the first dragon knight who rode it. That was the object of the first soul integration, and it would be engraved in its memory for the rest of its life. The subsequent Dragon Knight was just dealing with errands. They could no longer open their hearts to each other and complete a deeper level of soul integration. Is it because Carl Law is too flustered, or because I looked down on him, causing the soul integration to collapse and start to hinder each other? Was a little confused. What followed was a stronger sense of sleepiness. It shook its head hard, even at the cost of opening the wound on its neck to recover some of its energy. At this moment, a special fragrance floated into its nose, causing its already unfocused eyes to become even more unfocused. Its movements also became stiff, and it slowly deviated from its intended direction. The moon was in the middle of the sky. It was already midnight. The light green gemstone dragon that was in a daze unknowingly followed the fragrance to a rocky island. It was surrounded by reefs and rock walls, and there was only a small forest at the top. In the middle of the forest, there was a small dead shrub, with a few sprouts at the top of the dead branches. The fragrance wafted from the sprouts. At this moment, the light green gemstone dragon was exhausted. It struggled to land in the forest on the island, then fainted beside the dead shrub. Warm dragon blood slowly seeped out of the wound on its neck, flowing along the cracks in the rocks on the ground to the roots of the dead shrub that was sprouting. Time returned to the afternoon sea where the setting sun shone. Carl Law Violet died, the light green gemstone dragon escaped, and the situation of the battlefield changed in an instant. Everything happened without warning. Carl Law. Seeing Carl Law fall into the sea, Alonso Cactus was terrified. When he came in high spirits, he did not think that the high and mighty Dragon Knight would die in this sea. But now was not the time to pursue Carl Law's death. It was a matter of life and death. Whether or not he could escape was a matter of life and death. He did not dare to continue to stay in this magic baptism battlefield. The huge magic had already swept towards him after the light green gemstone dragon escaped. In addition, the Sapphire Dragon Knight Andrew Sapphire was restraining them, and the Fire Dragon Knight List Tulip had turned around and started to rush towards him. With such a luxurious lineup, if he was not careful, he would really follow in the footsteps of Carl Law and fall in this sea. The bronze dragon let out an unwilling roar, and decisively turned around with Alonso. Despite suffering a few heavy injuries, and relying on the protection of its thick scales, it rushed out of the baptism of magic battlefield. Then, without looking back, it flew in the direction it came from, not daring to stay for a moment longer. It did not even say a word. A chi chase. List rode on the already exhausted little fire dragon Leo. After a few kilometers, he saw that the bronze dragon had already disappeared into the sky, and he could not catch up. As for Achi, in a situation where she could not fly, it was useless to catch up. So he could only let Alonso escape. Looking at the clouds in the sky, List directly grabbed a large number of magic potions from the space ring and threw them over. Leo opened its mouth and swallowed all the magic potions together with the glass tube. The replenishment of the magic potions allowed its tired body to slowly recover. List also quickly swallowed a few magic potions to replenish his exhausted fighting energy. Chapter 7:18. It was a pity for List that he didn't slay a dragon in the dragon-slaying battle, but he was able to kill a dragon knight and defeat 2 dragons with the strength of a young dragon knight and a newly promoted magic shooter. It was already a brilliant victory. Brother, don't you need a dragon spear? Achi will go and salvage the dragon knight's silver dragon spear. Flying to the battlefield where the magic baptism took place, Achi suddenly said. List nodded. By the way, salvage Carl Law's body as well. This sea was not deep, about 200 or 300 meters. This depth was no different from walking in her backyard for Achi. In the blink of an eye, a 5-meter-long silver dragon spear and a corpse that had not yet stiffened were salvaged and handed over to List. He asked Leo to catch Carl Law's body while he held the dragon spear. The spear was 5 meters long and as thick as a wrist. The silver spear shaft seemed to be made of a mixture of orichalcum and mithril. There were fine lines on it, and the shaft was inlaid with many World of Warcraft materials. If one looked closely, these lines and the World of Warcraft materials intertwined with each other and seemed to vaguely form 4 words. Thunder Fury. Good name, I like its aggressiveness. List stroked the spear shaft with a satisfied look, then turned his eyes to the spear tip. The tip of the spear should be made of a mixture of cave and fine gold. It shone coldly, but the tip was made of bone. It's like grinding the teeth of a dragon and pouring mithril, orichalcum and fine gold on the outside. So is Thunder Fury a dragon tooth weapon? Dragon-tooth weapons were a higher level of weapon than Great Elven weapons. However, the classification of weapons was relatively vague. Weapons made of different materials had different properties, and the boundaries between them had been mixed up and could not be accurately distinguished. But anyway, List could feel that this was a powerful dragon spear. Because when he held Thunder Fury, he suddenly felt a heroic and generous feeling of, with the dragon spear in hand, the world is mine. After a moment, List and Achi had returned to the original battlefield of the dragon-slaying war, where a chase was taking place. The Eagle Kingdom's fleet fled in all directions, while the Sapphire Grand Duke's fleet chased after them. After the dragon-slaying battle ended, the Sapphire Grand Duke returned on the broken Sapphire Dragon and ordered his fleet to attack. Having lost the Dragon Knight, the Knight of the Eagle Kingdom panicked and lost the will to fight. They only cared about escaping. He looked at the fleeing ships. Since he didn't find any new domain knight or any valuable targets like the ancient warrior inheritors, List didn't take any action. He just flew over the fleet. Now that his identity as a Dragon Knight had been exposed, there was no longer a need to keep a low profile. As a Dragon Knight, he naturally had to put on airs, disdaining to attack an ordinary knight. He flew across the sky. Achi stood on a white shell, riding a waterspout and galloping, following closely behind List. Such a cool appearance almost scared the Knight of the Eagle Kingdom into abandoning the ship and jumping into the sea. They didn't dare to breathe for fear of disturbing the slow-flying Fire Dragon Knight and the unknown magic shooter. A mage who could control a waterspout must be the caster of the earth-shattering magic they saw before. No one dared to provoke a magic shooter who could participate in the dragon-slaying war. Terrifying. Dragon Knight and magic shooter, Sapphire is too powerful. Fortunately, the Dragon Knight and magic shooter didn't care about us at all. Did you see that the Fire Dragon's claws are holding a person? Ah, silver helmet and silver armor, that's His Highness Karl Luo? Impossible. His Highness Karl Luo, how could you? I'm afraid it's true. The Fire Dragon Knight is holding a silver dragon spear in his hand, which is the weapon of His Highness Karl Luo. A glimpse revealed a lot of bitter information. At least the Knight of the Eagle Kingdom who saw List flying on the dragon had already guessed the outcome of the dragon-slaying war. They knew one of the results, the death of the light green Sapphire Dragon Knight, Karl Luo Violet. The death of the Dragon Knight. Except for natural deaths, there hadn't been such a thing as the death of the Dragon Knight for decades. One could imagine how much shock it would cause when the news spread back to the Eagle Kingdom. The Knight couldn't imagine what kind of treatment they would receive when they returned to the invasion war. How high the king's anger would be. The most important thing was that the Eagle Kingdom raised the 9-headed dragon to protect the security of the country and trained 6 Dragon Knight to guard the border. Now that Karl Luo Violet was dead, who would replace the border he guarded? Once the Dragon Knight was lost, the border would inevitably be in danger. As the Dragon Knight who suppressed the existence of a country. Once he died, it would affect the whole country. The Eagle Kingdom would be in a violent turmoil, and even the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom and the Blast Furnace Kingdom would be in turmoil. The vassal states of those kingdoms would also be involved in this big whirlpool. What would the future be like? No one knew. But these Knight of the Eagle Kingdom knew one thing. The appearance of the Fire Dragon Knight and the magic shooter in Sapphire, the Eagle Kingdom would no longer be able to capture this sea. The hinterland of the coastline would still be bitten and torn by the flies of Sapphire, drawing nutrients from the huge kingdom. But they were more curious about the identity of the Fire Dragon Knight and the magic shooter. It wouldn't be long before these 2 strong men who stood at the peak of power would be famous all over the world. He didn't find the Tulip fleet in the sea chase, so List drove Leo directly to the port of Oxfoot City. In fact, the best way now was to take Leo back and let Leo sleep in his body, rest and restore his energy. But List needed to be ostentatious. Because the next step was to count the results of the battle and negotiate with the Sapphire Grand Duke. He needed to let the Sapphire Grand Duke, who had a temporary respite, understand the current situation. He could choose not to fight for the Grand Duchy of Sapphire, and choose to go further overseas to build a country, but this sea must surrender to the new master. Saving the Grand Duchy of Sapphire with his own strength, the benefits he deserved could not be less. The port was in sight. The Tulip family ship could also be seen, as well as the Sapphire Dragon lying unconscious not far from the port. List flew very slowly. He wanted everyone to open their eyes and see clearly who was the Dragon Knight who had the last laugh in the dragon-slaying battle. It was him, List Tulip. At the same time, he also took advantage of this distance to summon the Smoke mission. Such a terrifying dragon-slaying battle, He didn't know what kind of unknown reward would be rewarded. Smoke curled up. He was the only one who could see it. Mission completed. Reward, Dragon Knight Do Chi Secret Manual. Well, List read the content clearly and didn't show much surprise because he had already thought about it. After this dragon-slaying battle, he must ask the Grand Duke for the Dragon Knight Do Chi Secret Manual. The Grand Duke had no reason to refuse, so the secret manual was already in his hands. Taking it out as a reward was a bit perfunctory. But the new smoke mission swept away List's disappointment. Chapter 719. This chapter is 100,000 Years of Salted Fish. A light green gem dragon. List checked carefully and confirmed that the reward of the smoke mission was a light green gem dragon. He couldn't help but feel excited. He couldn't wait to turn around and go to his territory to find the light green gem dragon. But he still suppressed this restlessness. A hearty battle had left him in a bad state. If he traveled a long way and consumed his stamina, he might not be able to catch the light green gem dragon. It was best to wait for himself, Leo, and Ichi to recover to their best state before doing the capture mission and taking this light green gem dragon as his own. Leo, Ichi, and I just consumed too much energy and can easily make up for it. The light green gem dragon was seriously injured and will definitely need a long time to recover. And now at this stage it must be very vigilant. It will escape at the slightest sign of trouble. It's not good for me to appear too early. Anyway, the light green gem dragon was resting on his territory. Well, it's resting on my territory island? He suddenly came back to his senses. The content of the smoke mission actually pointed to his territory. Just now, he was obsessed with the light green gem dragon and ignored the information of the territory island. My territory island, Coral Island? Black Horse Island? Seagull Island, Sand Beach Island, Stony Island? Or Atoll Island or Dodo Island? These were all in the far northeast. The light green gem dragon, on the other hand, had fled to the south. It was unlikely that it would turn back and hide on List's island, playing the trick of, the most dangerous place is the safest place. Moreover, each island basically had his property, and it was unlikely that a dragon would slip in undetected. So it won't be around Black Horse Island? Dodo Island is farther away. I doubt that the light green gem dragon can find a way to fly there. Frowning, an almost forgotten island floated into List's mind. Maybe it's the Heart Island? The island where the dragon soul fruit was born? After I dug up the dead wood, I remember that I seemed to have announced that the Heart Island was my territory. It seems to be this island. Mysterious dragon soul fruit, light green gem dragon. I wonder if there's a connection between the two. Could it be that the mysterious dragon soul fruit attracted the light green gem dragon? After confirming the place where the light green gemstone dragon was recuperating, List calmed down. At this moment he and Ichi slowly arrived at the port of Oxhoof City. The Sapphire Grand Duke stood at the dock to welcome them. Behind him were Lee William and the other knight who did not participate in the naval battle. Everyone was looking forward to the slowly flying fire dragon knight List and Ichi. Lee William, you make me jealous. The Grand Duke looked at the ferocious and domineering fire dragon descending from the sky and could not help but sigh. Lee William stood shoulder to shoulder with the Grand Duke. Ever since List transformed into the fire dragon knight, he had enjoyed the envy, jealousy, and hatred of tens of thousands of people. He was intoxicated by this sudden rise in status, even though it was mixed with a lot of fear. Especially when List was beaten up by the light green gem dragon knight, he was really afraid that List would be careless and become a sacrifice in the battle of dragon slaying. When Ichi made her move, the situation instantly turned around, and he no longer had any worries. His head was held high, and his posture never relaxed for a moment. The knight is blessed by glory. I never expected List to become a dragon knight, but the people around him call him the Son of Glory. Maybe he really is the Son of Glory. He is indeed the Son of Glory, the Grand Duke said with certainty. An 18-year-old dragon knight, with a magic shooter as his companion. The glory of the knight is almost all on him. In this sea, even on this continent, there is no one more worthy of the title of Son of Glory than him. Amidst the praise, the fire dragon was already hovering above the port, and then directly fell on the crowd below. The knight who was originally crowded at the port immediately retreated in fear. Leo's nostrils flared and he let out a loud roar. He landed quickly in the open space where the crowd had squeezed out. A pair of huge scarlet eyes scanned the surrounding crowd, flashing with an evil light of choosing people to devour. The torrential firebird rippled from its body, fluctuating in all directions, like countless pairs of big hands strangling the knights' necks. Even William was no exception. He only felt that his breathing began to become uneven. The firebird's oppression on ordinary knight was too strong. Only the Grand Duke was not afraid of the firebird. He himself could release the firebird with the help of the sapphire dragon. However, seeing his knight behind him with a pained expression and difficulty breathing, he could not help but smile bitterly. It was very clear that the meaning of List's actions was nothing more than a show of power. Bang bang. Carl Law's body fell to the ground. List calmly jumped down from the dragon's back. Behind him, a Chi also steadily jumped down from the waterspout and stood side by side with List. List's gaze swept over the Grand Duke, William and the others in front of him, and finally fixed on the Tulip family's knight. A few of you come over and collect the body of Carl Law Violet. The few knight who were swept by his gaze excitedly walked over, respectfully saluting List, and began to move Carl Law's body. List lightly ordered, "Be careful, be more dignified. This is the first dragon knight I've killed. It's worth commemorating." Hearing this sentence, the surrounding knight's body trembled. Once again they were oppressed by List's powerful aura. Fear was buried deep in their hearts. The dragon knight, who was powerful enough to suppress a country, died just like that. The one who killed him was this handsome, tall fire dragon knight List Tulip. The Grand Duke's mouth twitched again. He felt that he was really old. Young people nowadays really did not know how to keep a low profile. The dragon knight had killed him, but as if he was afraid that others would not know who killed him, he had to repeat it in front of him, declaring who the winner of the dragon-slaying battle was. Although he despised List's behavior in his heart, but the Grand Duke still took a step forward, showing a gentle smile. "Your Excellency List, Your Excellency Achilles, thank you both for lending a hand and saving Sapphire in a critical moment." He expressed his gratitude in front of everyone, showing enough sincerity. List was satisfied with the Grand Duke's attitude. This was called a wise man submits to circumstances. Therefore, he restrained his aggressive posture, showed the good demeanor of a noble, and replied in a restrained and domineering manner, "The sea has the order of the sea. I am also a knight born in Sapphire. I will not allow the mainland kingdom to interfere with the order of the sea." The Grand Duke echoed, "We are all Knight of Sapphire. The sea should be handed over to the Knight of the Sea to determine its order." After saying that, he gestured with his hand. "Your Excellency List, Your Excellency Achilles, as the Duke of the Grand Duchy of Sapphire, I solemnly invite you both to attend a banquet at Oxhoof Castle. As for how to restore the order of the sea, I believe we need to carefully and prudently discuss it." "That's exactly what I was thinking. Grand Duke, please go first." List responded with a smile. When the Grand Duke stepped forward, he suddenly snapped his fingers at Leo. "Come back." The fire dragon Leo, who was lying on the side, flapped his wings and rushed directly into the sky. He circled the port of Oxhoof Castle, and then let out a deafening roar at the sleeping sapphire dragon on the hillside not far away. Then he turned into a ball of flame and rushed into List's body. List threw the thunder's fury in his hand to the knight of the Tulip family. Under the awe-inspiring gazes of the surrounding knights, he slowly followed the Grand Duke and his party. Chapter 720. This chapter is titled, "Meeting You in the Deepest Part of My Life." Waiting for List to recall Leo. Looking at the departing figures of the group, the knights on the port who had just recovered from the firebird did not hate Leo's firebird. On the contrary, they were all excited. What a terrifying firebird. Is this considered close contact with a dragon? It's a fire dragon, an evil dragon. When the fire dragon looked at me, my legs couldn't help but tremble. I heard that the fire dragon is the most powerful dragon. No one can kill the evil fire dragon. Unbelievable, His Highness List is actually riding a fire dragon. That magic shooter is also very powerful. He looks as young as His Highness List. A son of glory. His Highness List is only 18 years old. I remember he was promoted to a Sky Knight half a year ago. I didn't expect him to be a noble dragon knight now. So beautiful, the dragon is so beautiful. The Knights of Sapphire began to whisper. Everything that happened today was unbelievable, as if they were in a dream. An unparalleled battle between 4 dragon knight and a magic shooter. In the end, it ended with the fall of a dragon knight. The new fire dragon knight and the legendary magic shooter were even more shocking. What was even more shocking was that they were actually from the Tulip family of Sapphire's newly promoted noble marquis. Unlike the amazed Sapphire Knight, the Knight of the Tulip family was all arrogant. They wished they could enlarge the Tulip logo on their armor by 10 times. Ah, Sir List is the son of glory of the Tulip family. I once fought under Sir List for the expansion order. Yes, I witnessed Sir List's path of glory from an ordinary knight to a dragon knight. I have long known that Sir List is the son of glory. He is destined to be extraordinary. The Dragon Knight is the best proof. Viscount Yunus, who accompanied the Oxtail Marquis, became the center of attention. Many nobles who were not qualified to follow behind the Sapphire Grand Duke and List surrounded Viscount Yunus and kept asking about List. Yunus boasted in satisfaction. List's name was already flashing above the Sapphire. If a day ago, all the nobles thought that List would be the brightest noble in Sapphire Kingdom's future, then now the nobles dared not imagine List's future. What is the future of the Dragon Knight? And a magic shooter. If the Dragon Knight and the magic shooter worked together, it would be a piece of cake to overthrow the Grand Duchy of Sapphire. Fortunately, the intimate scene just now showed that List did not intend to overthrow Sapphire. Then establishing a kingdom overseas was the inevitable result. With the Dragon Knight and the magic shooter overseeing the country, be it on the sea or on the continent, it would be easy to establish a kingdom. Once such a kingdom was established, it could be imagined how many vacant noble positions would be waiting for the knight to fill. Glory. Many knights' heart flickered with excitement. The pursuit on the sea was still going on. But it did not prevent the Sapphire Grand Duke from inviting List to a banquet at Oxhoof Castle. There were only 5 high-back chairs arranged at the main table. Seated were the Sapphire Grand Duke Andrew Tulip, the Marquis of Quicksand City Nesta Great Flower Wayland, the Marquis of Oxtail Lee William Tulip, the Fire Dragon Knight List Tulip, and the Water Magic Shooter A. Chi Royd's Truth. A Chi's identity had been introduced by Lee William before. She was List's sister. Noble banquets were not popular for discussing business. Instead, it was mainly about mutual flattery and gossip. The Grand Duke mainly talked about some interesting stories recorded by the court. This included some information about the kingdoms on the continent. For example, the continent had a total of 3 empires, 11 kingdoms, and a large number of established and extinct duchies. And this continent actually had a very cool name. As early as the era of the Moon Empire, this continent was unified for the first time. At that time, the higher-ups of the Moon Empire thought that there was no need for a country to exist. They should directly name it Legendary Continent. But this proposal was eventually rejected. But the name of Legendary Continent has been passed down. List asked curiously, does this mean that there are other continents besides the Legendary Continent? I'm not sure. We only live in a few isolated countries in the northeast corner of the Legendary Continent. The news is not smooth. And in my life I have only been to the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom and the Eagle Kingdom. I have not even been to the Blast Furnace Kingdom where my family migrated to. The Grand Duke laughed. The Sapphire family originated from the Blast Furnace Kingdom? Yes. My ancestor, Anderson Sapphire, was a Marquis of the Blast Furnace Kingdom. After receiving the approval of the Sapphire Dragon, he migrated to Sapphire Kingdom. But the Blast Furnace Kingdom did not support my family, so my family eventually pledged loyalty to the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom. Everyone was a Dragon Knight, so the Grand Duke had no intention of hiding it. Those ordinary knights might raise their necks and constantly fantasize about how noble, mysterious, and incredible the Dragon Knight family was, but in fact the Dragon Knight family was just a larger noble family. The family also had complex interpersonal relationships. They also needed to earn money to eat, drink, and support the knight. The only difference was that having a dragon would allow one to protect a country and occupy a greater share of the resources allocated. List did not agree with the cooking skills of the Oxhoof Castle chef. He simply ate a little World of Warcraft meat. Grand Duke, it is reasonable to say that all the Dragon Knight family have important garrison tasks and are difficult to mobilize easily. How did the Eagle Kingdom dispatch 2 Dragon Knight family to attack Sapphire this time? I don't know the specific details, but the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom did not inform me that Carl Law and Alonso had left the border defense area. Maybe some people in the kingdom were not satisfied that the annual tribute to the kingdom did not flow into their pockets, or maybe they got some benefits and felt that Sapphire could be abandoned. It was nothing more than some conspiracies. List could guess that this was the intrigue between the forces of the duchy and the kingdom. He did not continue to ask but changed the topic. I killed Carl Law. How much turmoil will it cause to the Eagle Kingdom? I don't know if the Eagle Kingdom has the courage to invade Sapphire a second time. The death of Carl Law should not affect it too much. After all, the light green sapphire dragon escaped successfully. There is a special agreement between the dragon and the kingdom. It will return to the Eagle Kingdom and will still be an important fighting force after recuperating. What do you mean by a special agreement? We can talk about it in the study later. The Grand Duke smiled. The meaning was self-evident. There were some things that only the Dragon Knight family could understand, and outsiders did not need to understand. Even if Nesta was his brother-in-law and Lee William was List's father. It was also unnecessary. Nobles paid attention to interests above all. Family could only be regarded as an important vassal of interests. Since ancient times, there were countless examples of fathers and sons and brothers turning against each other. Since the dragon was so important, it was obviously not suitable to take care of family. List also smiled, understanding the Grand Duke's meaning. On the side, Achi always had no attitude. She followed whatever List did and did not want to say a word. Nesta and Lee William also did not express anything. If the Grand Duke could understand the principle, they would naturally not be stupid enough not to understand it. They had been great nobles for many years. Chapter 721. The banquet ended in a peaceful atmosphere. Nesta accompanied Lee William to the living room to accept the compliments of the nobles. Today was the day when List's name would shake the seas, and the day when Lee William would laugh proudly at all the nobles of Sapphire Kingdom. He had already enjoyed countless compliments after being promoted to Oxtail Marquis not long ago. However, one could never complain about too many compliments. Lee William wished he could receive compliments every day. Moreover, the compliments this time would be unprecedentedly powerful. As the father of the Dragon Knight, anyone with a discerning eye could see that he would probably be the father of the magic shooter as well. Therefore, his status would be infinitely elevated, no different from Lee William becoming the Dragon Knight. Lord Marquis. Lord Lee William. As soon as he arrived at the living room, the nobles stood up and greeted him enthusiastically. Lee William smiled faintly and waved his hand lightly. Everyone, please take a seat. There is no need to be so polite. I am still me, Marquis Oxtail, one of the Grand Duke's followers. List's achievements are his own. Whether it is the Dragon Knight or the Magic Shooter, he will create a new family. I will still represent the Tulip family. Lord Marquis is too humble. The crown of the Dragon Knight and the Magic Shooter is also your glory. Lord List has yet to marry or split from the family. He still needs your support. Yes, you are Sapphire's solid pillar and Lord List's solid pillar. The large amount of flattery made Lee William feel smug, but he did not lose his composure. He replied in a low-key manner, "My son is independent and has his own ideas. All I can do is to pave the way for his future as much as possible. Father and son will work together to revitalize the glory and legacy of the Tulip family." The corner of Nesta's mouth twitched. He, the relative of Sapphire Kingdom and the Grand Duke's brother-in-law, had become Lee William's foil. Even though he was used to this strength of character of the nobles, he still felt suffocated when he saw the flattering smiles on their faces. However, he did not dare to show any expression. He even had to say a few words to flatter William from time to time. The current Grand Duchy of Sapphire had to rely on List and Achi's strength in order to survive. The ruler of the sea was no longer the Sapphire Grand Duke who had almost been slain by a dragon. Even the Grand Duke himself had to accept this. In the study of Oxhoof Castle, Sapphire Grand Duke, who was once the undisputed ruler of the sea, looked at the exceptionally young List and Achi with mixed feelings in his heart. Disappointment, envy, jealousy, gratitude, worry, and so on mixed together in his heart. On the surface there was still a gentle smile. In this small study room there are 2 Dragon Knight and a Magic Shooter. It can be said that your presence brings light to my humble dwelling. Being graced by your presence was a Chinese idiom, and the Grand Duke was speaking in Serpentine. However, what the Grand Duke wanted to express in List's view was that his presence brought light to his humble dwelling. If it wasn't for the dragon-slaying war coming so soon, I wouldn't have thought of exposing my identity as a Dragon Knight so early. Even Achi's identity as a Magic Shooter has been exposed. List felt a little regret. Although the dragon-slaying war was hardy, compared to the troubles he needed to worry about later, a stable development was more suitable for his style. You don't have to care too much about this. Although you and your dragon are very young, and the Dragon Knight has little experience. But as long as you are not in a hurry to establish a country and divide the territory within the kingdom's sphere of influence, there is no need to care about the dragon-slaying war. The Dragon Knight's mobility is its strongest advantage. I didn't have to worry before, but now that my identity has been exposed, I think I should establish a country as soon as possible. Moreover, Sapphire should not be able to support 2 Dragon Knight and a magic shooter, and the ruling order will also clash. List did not beat around the bush and directly confessed his ambition. If he did not establish a country, then he was bound to overthrow Sapphire's rule and proclaim himself king. The Grand Duke smiled. No one knew what he was thinking, but he could only nod and say, "Do you have any ideas on where to establish a country?" "It's still in the sea. I'm going to send people to look for new islands, and will not compete with Sapphire for the current sea. But the things needed to establish a country are too complicated, and I will need your help, Grand Duke." "Don't worry, I will do my best to help if I can," the Grand Duke said happily. "Then I won't stand on ceremony." List nodded and then took out a stack of lists from his arms. These were the resources he had previously imagined to establish a country. Seeing the thick stack of white paper, the Grand Duke was half curious about what it was, and the other half unconsciously twitched the corner of his mouth. List just flipped through the list casually and said, "I will entrust my father to discuss with you, Grand Duke, to determine which resources are needed. I am more concerned about the Dragon Knight now. Grand Duke, you are the senior of the Dragon Knight, I hope you will not be stingy with your advice. Please speak. What agreement did the kingdom and the dragon sign?" List asked the first question. He was about to have a second dragon and needed a way to control it. In his plan he would have many dragons and he needed a way to control the dragons to be able to raise these big guys with peace of mind. He was not afraid that they would be abducted by others, or that they would turn on their master. He was not afraid of that himself, but the problem was if his descendants were not qualified, how would they control the dragons? The Grand Duke replied, "This agreement is actually a brand of the first generation of Dragon Knight." Brand? The life of a dragon is very long, and it can have many Dragon Knight fighting side by side. You are also a Dragon Knight, so you should understand the mystery of the battle of the soul. I understand, but what does this have to do with the brand? After the soul of the Dragon Knight and the dragon become one for a long time, it can leave its own will brand on the dragon's soul, constantly influencing the dragon, and finally merging with a part of the dragon's own soul. This way, even after the Dragon Knight dies, the dragon will still protect the descendants of the Dragon Knight. Is this method safe? Especially if the dragon is given to the trained Dragon Knight to ride, if the dragon is ridden away, wouldn't it be a loss of both the person and the money? I don't know how you experience the battle of the soul. Dragons are arrogant, and the dragon's soul is even more powerful, especially a dragon that has experienced the first generation of Dragon Knight, its soul can be said to be perfect. The subsequent Dragon Knight cannot break through the dragon's soul and replace the influence of the first generation of Dragon Knight. So even if I capture the light green gemstone dragon in this dragon-slaying battle, I can't ride it? Yes, this is also the reason why the dragon-slaying battle is called dragon-slaying. The final result of a war is usually the slaughter of the opponent's dragon. Captives are meaningless, and no amount of ransom can be exchanged for the value of a dragon. And for a dragon that cannot be raised, rather than keeping it to constantly resist, it is better to kill it directly and extract all its value. Listening to the Grand Duke's explanation, List's thoughts kept flashing. If what the Grand Duke said was true, it meant that even if he caught the heavily injured light green gemstone dragon, he might not be able to ride it, unless he was willing to use a mystical dragon soul fruit to cut off the light green gemstone dragon's first generation of Dragon Knight soul brand. But regardless of the probability of success, it was hard to say whether it was worth using the mystical dragon soul fruit. He only had 3 mystical dragon soul fruits and he used one for Leo. As for the remaining 2, one was confirmed to be used on the invisible dragon, and the last one was reserved for the future contract with the fairy dragon to become the lord of the dragon domain and increase his lifespan. Even if he couldn't find the fairy dragon, it was not worth using it on a light green gemstone dragon that was hundreds of years old. Chapter 722. The Sapphire Dragon first lived in the primitive forest and spent nearly 300 years until it met Anderson Sapphire, the ancestor of the current Grand Duke. Anderson was a very charming knight. As a Marquis of the Blast Furnace Kingdom, he had a large fief, including the habitat of the Sapphire Dragon. In order to ride the dragon, Anderson constantly used various resources to please the Sapphire Dragon, and finally scratched the Sapphire Dragon's G-spot. He got the chance to have a spiritual battle. In the spiritual battle, he won the recognition of the Sapphire Dragon and became a Dragon Knight. When he applied to the Blast Furnace Kingdom to divide the territory and establish a duchy, he was rejected by the royal family at the time. He had to look for a new territory, so he chose a barren area claimed by the Eagle Kingdom to establish a country. He thought that the Eagle Kingdom would not fall out with him because of a barren land. Who knew that there would really be a dragon-slaying war? As a last resort, Anderson rode the Sapphire Dragon and fled for thousands of miles. Eventually he was caught up by the White Iron Dragon at Blue Blood Mountain. They fought for a while, and the blood spilled on the ground turned into Blue Blood Mountain. Then the seriously injured Sapphire Dragon crossed the sea, established a country in the Outer Islands, and pledged allegiance to the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom, becoming a vassal state that paid tribute every year. Defeating the Sapphire Dragon's mind requires a strong power in the spirit. Once this power is enough to shake the Sapphire Dragon's mind, it can be recognized by the Sapphire Dragon. Unfortunately, for more than 100 years, no one in the family has been able to shake the Sapphire Dragon's mind, including me. The Sapphire Grand Duke said, when the Marquis Bull and the Goat Assembly launched a dragon-slaying conspiracy, the Sapphire Dragon's soul was hurt. I was able to shake its mind and get its approval. But this opportunistic way cannot really get the Sapphire Dragon's complete approval. I'm more like reaching a cooperation agreement with it to ride the dragon. Is it convenient to tell me what the agreement is? It's actually very simple. It knows that it is in danger, and I know that Sapphire is in danger, so we agree. When I lift the Wailing Dragon bone sword made from its forelimbs, I can temporarily become one with it and become a real dragon knight, but I still can't ride it. List could not help but sigh. Is there such an operation? If the Sapphire Dragon's soul hadn't been injured, there wouldn't have been such an opportunistic possibility. A dragon's soul is stronger than any metal. Unless it is acknowledged, it will never compromise. The Grand Duke smiled, but there seemed to be some bitterness in his smile. List could roughly sense that the Grand Duke did not reveal the real truth. The price of riding the Sapphire Dragon was probably far more serious than what was described lightly. This could be seen from the irreparable appearance of the Sapphire Dragon. However, he did not delve into it. Since he had decided not to overthrow the rule of the Sapphire family, but to go overseas to find an archipelago to build a country, there was no need to worry about the Sapphire family anymore. If the Sapphire Dragon really died, or if other unforeseen events happened, it would not be too late to take over the land. I have a basic understanding of the soul battle. Now, I need the Dragon Knight Dochi manual. I knew you would need this. Give me one night and I will write it down for you. Is it not recorded in the books? There were no books from the beginning. The Dragon Knight Do-Chi manual created by the ancestors is only passed down in the minds of the heirs. I also hope you can pass it down in this way. As a new member of the dragon-raising family, all information about the dragon must be kept strictly confidential. I understand. Of course it must be kept confidential. If the secret was known to the whole world, then everyone would be qualified to try riding a dragon. Only by passing it down within the dragon-raising family could the high status of the dragon-raising family be guaranteed to the greatest extent. Just as the great aristocrats basically only passed down the Do-Chi secret within the family, the dragon-raising family would pass down the dragon secret within. By the way, I found that the Sapphire Dragon seems to be unable to transform into a magic form and enter the body of the Dragon Knight. I am also very curious about the situation of your Fire Dragon. It can actually integrate into your body. To be honest, if I didn't see it with my own eyes, it would be hard to believe that this would happen. You should avoid exposing this method. This is part of the secret of the dragon. It was indeed a bit rash, mainly because the situation of the dragon-slaying battle was critical. List directly released Leo on the ship and exposed the secret of Leo's transformation. Therefore, there was no way to keep it a secret anymore. Fortunately, it did not matter if this secret was exposed. It did not have much to do with riding a dragon. The Grand Duke did not know the reason why Leo switched back and forth between magic and flesh, so List did not mention it again. Perhaps Leo mutated during pregnancy, or this was a unique way of survival for elemental dragons. Then List asked the Grand Duke many questions about the Dragon Knight. Ichi also asked some magic questions. Information had always been what newcomers like List and Ichi desired the most. Unfortunately, the Grand Duke could provide List with the Dragon Knight Do-Chi manual, but could not provide too much magic for Ichi. Magic shooters had already become a legend, and their inheritance had long been extinct. No matter what. This friendly and cordial exchange made List very satisfied. Before leaving, he warmly shook hands with the Grand Duke. Grand Duke, talking to you made me understand many things. The price of knowledge is far more abundant than material goods. Thank you for your generous gift. I will benefit from it for the rest of my life. You're welcome. We are all Dragon Knight. It is more beneficial to communicate with each other. In the future, we need to maintain the order of the sea together to prevent the mainland countries from getting involved. That is for sure. There was no reason for List not to agree to the offensive and defensive alliance. In any case, he and Ichi had not yet grown up. Now, not only did he kill a Dragon Knight of the Eagle Kingdom, but he was also ready to capture the light green gemstone dragon. He was destined to form a blood feud with the royal family of the Eagle Kingdom. If the royal family became hot-headed and gathered the remaining 5 Dragon Knight to besiege him, it would definitely be a huge problem. It was just the right time to form an offensive and defensive alliance with the Sapphire Grand Duke, and fight for a period of time to develop and get through the difficulties of the early days of the country. When he walked out of the door, he seemed to think of something and turned around. Grand Duke, I will arrange for my father to discuss the material assistance with you as soon as possible. Well said. The Grand Duke's smile was a little stiff. And the Dragon Knight Do-Chi manual. Can I see it tomorrow morning? I should be able to. Thank you for your generosity, Grand Duke. Satisfied, List pulled Ichi away. A nameless castle near Oxhoof City was arranged to be repaired by the Tulip family. It was already late at night. The beaming Lee William had already returned. List, who had left Oxhoof Castle earlier, was drinking with Marquis Wildtao. This domain knight was currently depressed and drinking. When Lee William walked over, he suddenly raised his bloodshot eyes and stared deeply at Lee William. This sword saint whom he had defeated with a single move had become the father of a Dragon Knight in a single leap. After a long time, he turned around and faced List, who was admiring the starlight. Thousands of words turned into a sigh. Your Highness, List, please rest assured. I will definitely hand over the Do-Chi manual and the Do-Chi manual. In addition, I will also hand over a big elf to you. He understood the current situation. List was already a Dragon Knight who had to use Your Highness as an honorific title. As a domain knight, he had no other choice but to agree to pay the ransom in exchange for his freedom. List no longer cared about these spoils of war. Chapter 723. Battle Energy Domain Secret Manual and Spiral Rotation. These were secret manuals that Marquis Wildtao had written in one go. They were both very short, with only a few pages of content. List first flipped through the Battle Energy Domain Secret Manual. According to Marquis Wildtao's introduction, there was no unified Battle Energy Domain Secret Manual on the market. It was only passed down by word of mouth within the various families, and then slowly supplemented. This secret manual of his was the complete version after his constant exploration and supplementation. According to the cultivation method in the secret manual, the battle energy domain was similar to the principles of the Dragon Rider resonance. Using the resonance and entanglement of battle energy with a bit of guidance, it could condense into a modeled but powerful battle energy that could be controlled freely. It was similar to a chorus. One person would lead and the others would sing along. Of course, the details were a bit more complicated, especially when controlling different orders of chivalry's battle energy. It required extremely complicated operations. Also, the domain knight needed to be familiar with the battle energy of each orders of chivalry knight. Only then could he easily guide the battle energy of the orders of chivalry into the battle energy domain. For List, this battle energy domain secret manual had no need to cultivate. It could not increase his strength, because the dragon battle energy far surpassed the battle energy domain. It could not provide reference either, because this was an imitation, shortened, weakened, and incomplete version of the Dragon Rider resonance. Compared to the Dragon Rider resonance, which was a deep integration of the soul and body, controlling the battle energy domain was like playing house. Although it does not supplement my strength and cannot provide more ideas, regardless, the battle energy domain is a very valuable cultivation secret for an ordinary knight. Di Maria did not falsify anything. The cultivation contents of this secret manual are correct. With his current insight, whether or not a secret manual could be cultivated could be determined with a bit of reasoning. He then flipped open spiral rotation. This battle energy secret technique was between support and battle type. Through special methods, it allowed the battle energy in the body to circulate in a spiral form. Not only could it condense the strength of the battle energy, but it could also speed up the release of the battle energy and increase the penetration of the battle energy. No wonder he could defeat a marquis in one move. With the support of spiral rotation, and the support of the battle energy domain, the power of a casual attack from Di Maria cannot be underestimated. If he hadn't encountered me with his strength, he might have achieved great things. Of course, encountering me was his fate. He put down the 2 secret manuals and stored them in a special section of his space ring. At this point he already had a full set of combat energy training scrolls, from the Trainee Knight's Basic Combat Energy, to the Earth Knight's Fire Surge, Thousand Ripples, Fire Dragon Drill, as well as the Multiple Arrows, Guided Arrow, and so on. After that, the Sky Knight practiced high-level Chi secret manuals, Giant Wave Breaking Ocean Tide, Meteor Crashing Shockwave, 15 kg Thunder Lightning Flash, and Red Sun Rising Fire. Marquis Nuteo, Clearwater Sword Sage Yevich, Garcia, and Fox's high-level Chi manuals were also taken away. There was a great variety of them, including water, fire, earth, wind, and lightning. Now, he had completed the Battle Energy Domain Secret Manual. A knight didn't lack any training manuals from start to finish, and when the sun rose, the big guilds would exchange the Dragon Knight Combat Aura Manual. At that time, the knight's training system would be completely mastered by him. As for the Chi secret skills, there were currently only 3 kinds: Magic Eye, Aura Decay, and Spiral Rotation. In the future, List would collect more to enrich his collection, and also to enrich his knowledge through the Chi secret skills. Perhaps he could innovate and create new Chi secret skills. The natives of this world can create all kinds of Chi secret skills and Chi secret skills, why can't I? I have the rich knowledge of another world. The 2 worlds before and after his transmigration were fundamentally different, but most of the principles could be learned from each other. He was far more open-minded than the natives, but the time he had transmigrated was too short, less than 3 years. All his time was basically spent on territory construction and knight training, and he really couldn't find time to create a lot. Or rather, the direction of his creation had always been crooked. The dignified Dragon Knight was actually engaged in some magic theory research and world history fabrication, a typical example of not doing proper work. He took out a pen and paper. The white paper could already be released to the public, and he had previously shown it to the Grand Duke. When the follow-up assistance of the country's founding began, his official business cooperation with Sapphire would probably be gradually launched. Now the white paper was spread flat on the table and the quill was dipped in ink. List pondered on improving the Red Sun Rising Fire. The dragon-slaying battle during the day exposed many shortcomings of the Red Sun Rising Fire. After all, it was only a high-level Chi secret skill, and many of its moves were no longer suitable for the Dragon Knight. How should I change it? He had a lot of inspiration in his mind, but he just couldn't come out at the moment. And he didn't know if it was because the light from the crystal lamp was a little dim tonight, or because the battle during the day had consumed too much energy, but he gradually felt sleepy, driving him to take a bath and sleep. Forget it, it won't be too late to improve the secret skill tomorrow. Lie down. List called out the smoke mission. Mission: after winning the dragon-slaying battle, your name will spread to every corner of the sea. Establishing a temporary new country will be easy, but considering the long-term development of the country, resources are the most important. Perhaps the light green gem dragon can provide you with it. It is hiding on one of your territorial islands. Reward: a light green gem dragon. It was still in an incomplete state, which meant that the light green gem dragon didn't run away, and he could enter the dream safely. Although he could sleep peacefully until dawn, it was a completely sleepless night for many people. The Sapphire Grand Duke put down the quill and shook the white paper notebook in his hand. He was curious about this thin but strong paper that didn't scatter ink. If the raw materials aren't expensive, and the production process isn't complicated, I'm afraid this white paper will soon replace thick bast paper. List: this young dragon knight who suddenly appeared out of nowhere, is really mysterious. Young fire dragon, strange magic shooter, glass and white paper. The Grand Duke rubbed his temples. There were already traces of white on his temples. He was now in his 50s, and according to the physical condition of a knight, he should be at the end of his golden age with a few more years of peak physical fitness. However, he already felt his body aging at an accelerated rate like a leaking ship. Every voyage would expand the area of leakage, until one day it completely sank into the sea. The Sapphire Dragon's serious injuries are difficult to heal, and I can't hold on much longer. I hope Anthony can take up the burden as soon as possible to maintain the continued operation of Sapphire. He closed the notebook. Chapter 724. As the former master of the sea, Sapphire Grand Duke had nowhere to vent his resentment. He thought that by successfully riding a dragon, he would be able to protect Sapphire through the crisis. The appearance of the two Dragon Knight of the Eagle Kingdom made him understand that Sapphire's crisis was far more terrible than he had imagined. Although the disaster was finally resolved because of the appearance of List and Acroids, the sea was no longer under Sapphire's control with the collaboration of a Dragon Knight and a magic shooter. It could also be said that the sea was no longer under Sapphire's control since the Eagle Kingdom could build brigs. Damn you, Andy, you're an ungrateful wretch. If it weren't for the betrayal of the Bull family, how could the Eagle Kingdom develop shipbuilding and dare to launch a dragon-slaying war? The Grand Duke's eyes flashed with hatred. I won't let you die so easily. Not only you but your grandchildren and your people, I will send them to follow you sooner or later. He secretly hated for a moment. The Grand Duke regained his composure. At this moment, dawn had quietly arrived. The eldest prince had led the fleet back to the port of Oxhoof City. A night of pursuit was fruitful. When the sun rose from the horizon, the port was lively again. The knight kept bragging about their achievements, how many fleeing ships they had defeated and how many knight they had captured. Of course, there was no lack of talk about the birth of the Tulip family's Dragon Knight and magic shooter, the death of Carl Law, the rise of List, and the replacement of the hegemon of the sea. And as the focus of everyone's discussion, List quietly stayed in the study, flipping through the Dragon Knight Combat Energy secret book, sent by the Grand Duke. A white notebook could contain about 200 words per page. The secret manual had a total of 10 pages, which meant that it had a vocabulary of less than 2,000 words. There was not much recorded content, but every sentence gave List a sense of enlightenment, greatly expanding his thinking. I see. The Dragon Knight stage is no longer simply practicing combat energy or combat skills, but the melting of human and dragon, including the melting of the soul, magic, and body. Strive to achieve a perfect dynamic balance between the knight and dragon, complementing each other to achieve perfection. In this perfect process of complementing each other, the soul imprint was just something that went along with the flow. Because the secret manual was recorded by Anderson Sapphire, it was divided according to his cultivation experience. He divided the Dragon Knight into 4 stages. The first stage, the trial period. Before riding on the dragon, the knight and the dragon would test each other and get used to each other. The knight's advanced consummate combat energy would gradually transform into dragon combat energy. However, this stage was not the Dragon Knight. Many Dragon Knight candidates had fallen at this stage. Then, their dochi would weaken and fall back to advanced perfect dochi. The second stage was the spiritual phase. Once the knight passed the dragon's test and was recognized, he would be able to initiate the spiritual battle. If he failed in the battle of souls, he would fail to ride the dragon. If he failed several times, he would lose the dragon's recognition and fall back to the level of advanced perfection. If the spiritual battle was successful, it would mean that he had successfully ridden a dragon and become a true Dragon Knight. At this stage, the dragon's do-chi gradually merged with the dragon's magic power. His mind was also constantly merging, and his fighting style was also converging and merging. The third stage was the perfect phase. When everything was successfully merged, the Dragon Knight would successfully leave his mark on the dragon's mind. There would be perfect harmony between man and dragon. When riding a dragon, there would no longer be any difference in thinking. They would become one. Anderson Sapphire was a Dragon Knight in the perfect phase. 10 years after the end of the Dragonslayer War, he and the Sapphire Dragon stepped into the perfect phase. There was also the fourth stage, the Transcendence phase. This was Anderson's speculation. He had never entered it, so he did not know what was so magical about it. The Dragon Knight in the perfect phase was the mainstream of the Dragon Knight. Basically, whether it was the Eagle Kingdom, the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom, or the Blast Furnace Kingdom, the Dragon Knight reached its peak at this stage. Until the Dragon Knight died of old age, there was no way to cross the perfect phase and enter the Transcendence phase. However, Anderson believed that there was definitely a Transcendence phase. He had recorded it in the secret manual. The perfect phase is not the end. I can deeply feel the restraint of the bottleneck. There is definitely a way to break through the bottleneck. Man and dragon will surpass each other, surpass the present, surpass everything. Perhaps, there is a Transcendence Dragon Knight in the 3 empires. Unfortunately, I have no chance to see it. The reading was over. List handed the Dragon Knight fighting secret manual to a Chi, hoping that a Chi could see something and provide him with ideas. He himself leaned back in his chair and pondered. According to the cultivation system Anderson has organized, I should now be a Dragon Knight in the spiritual phase. As for Alonso, Carla, and the Grand Duke, they should be Dragon Knight in the perfect phase. Of course, their perfect phase was forcibly promoted by the dragon after they merged with the dragon's mind. After all, these dragons had a Dragon Knight in the perfect phase as a partner. When the dragon and the Dragon Knight's mind merged, their minds operated in sync. The dragon would naturally pass on the Dragon Knight's experience in its memory to the Dragon Knight. There was no need for the Dragon Knight to explore on its own. As long as it slowly adapted, it would enter the perfect phase sooner or later. So, to be precise, this Dragon Knight Fighting Secret Manual is more like the experience of the first Dragon Knight riding a dragon. It is a record of the insights similar to an autobiography. The real Dragon Knight Fighting Secret Manual itself is hidden in the dragon's memory. The reason why there is a detailed record of fighting moves should be added by the Grand Duke. He clearly felt that in the second half of Anderson's secret manual, the various ways to operate the dragon's fighting were disjointed with the first half of the records. Probably the Grand Duke was afraid that Liszt would not believe that the Dragon Knight Fighting Secret Manual was only a personal biography, so he wrote the real Dragon Knight Fighting Secret Manual that he obtained from the Sapphire Dragon's mind in the second half of the biography and gave it to Liszt. Fortunately, the Grand Duke was wise and added the Dragon Knight Fighting Secret Manual, otherwise I would have really misunderstood. Now that I have the Sapphire Dragon Knight's dragon fighting moves as a reference, I can easily develop the fighting moves that belong to the Fire Dragon Knight. Every Dragon Knight's fighting moves are different, and I have to create them myself. Because the dragons were different, the fighting moves were naturally different, unless they were inherited from the same dragon. But through this secret manual, I can find that as an elemental dragon, the Fire Dragon is obviously very different from the Sapphire Dragon and the Metal Dragon, especially in the aspect of elementalization. As resource-type dragons, the Sapphire Dragon and the Metal Dragon would not switch between their magic power form and their flesh and blood form. Therefore, only Liszt knew the demonic dragon chi refinement technique. Moreover, Leo was so powerful at a young age, which made him deeply feel that the Sapphire Dragon and the Metal Dragon were just ordinary resource units, and the Elemental Dragon was the real combat unit. As an Elemental Dragon and a Fire Dragon Knight, once he entered the perfect phase, he would definitely beat the other Dragon Knight. Immediately, he suddenly had some inspiration. I feel that the training of the Dragon Knight is actually no different from that of the Sky Knight and the Earth Knight. The Earth Knight was divided into ordinary and elite. The ordinary phase was mid-level fighting energy, while the elite phase was mid-level fighting energy. The Sky Knight was divided into ordinary, sword saint, and perfect phase, but the essence of the fighting energy was still ordinary high-level fighting energy and perfect high-level fighting energy. The Domain Knight was just a special state of perfect high-level fighting energy. The Dragon Knight was similar. With the success of the Soul Battle as the starting point of training, the Soul Stage was ordinary dragon fighting energy, and the perfect phase was perfect dragon fighting energy. So the Beyond phase is actually more like the Beyond Dragon Knight stage? The Elite Earth Knight can rely on taking potions to break through the bottleneck, and the Perfect Sky Knight can rely on riding a dragon to break through the bottleneck. What method does the Dragon Knight rely on to break through the bottleneck of perfect dragon fighting energy? No one could give him an answer. He did not dwell on it. He would work hard to train to the perfect phase first. He stood up, stretched, and turned to ask Ichi, "How is your recovery after a night's rest? If you have recovered, set off with me to the Heart Island. I have a strong hunch that the heavily injured light green sapphire dragon is hiding on the island to recuperate." Ichi did not ask how Liszt had a hunch. He just nodded seriously. "Ichi has recovered, we can set off at any time." Chapter 725. This chapter is Han Little. No dragon rides. He hopped onto Ichi's seashell and sped towards the Heart Island. A night's time had allowed him and Ichi to recover, and Leo had also adjusted his condition. In order to avoid trouble, Liszt decided to capture the light green sapphire dragon. Although the light green sapphire dragon could not be ridden due to the soul brand of the first-generation Dragon Knight, Liszt was not willing to let it recover or escape. At most he would just slaughter it and eat its meat. He had never heard of anyone eating dragon meat, so he didn't know if dragon meat could be eaten. If the dragon meat was cut off, would it directly turn into a ball of flame, a gem, or something else? It was hard to tell. However, the dragon bones were very simple. They would be completely preserved. Otherwise, there would not be weapons like the dragon bone weapons and the dragon tooth weapons in this world. Even fire dragons that could turn into elementals would leave behind their bones after they died. In any case, the amount of dragon blood that flowed out alone was enough to turn the entire Heart Island into a light green gem mine. Light emeralds were gemstones that could increase the speed of aura and magic. They were very valuable. In fact, every gemstone dragon's gemstone was very valuable. There was no difference in the price of magic items. They chatted as they sailed. List was very curious about Achi's collection of dragon blood. Achi, have you studied what happens to dragon blood? I've only used a little bit of blood for research. Currently, the dragon blood is still in the form of blood and hasn't undergone any changes. The conditions here aren't good enough to do experiments. Achi is also worried that there won't be enough data here, so she plans to go back and do more detailed experiments. With the spatial ring, Achi stored all the dragon blood she collected in the spatial ring, keeping the dragon blood fresh. The emerald dragon, sapphire dragon, and bronze dragon all shed a large amount of blood. Although a lot of it was diluted by the sea, most of it was quickly extracted by Achi using her ability to control water. It filled up 1/7 of the spatial ring's space. It's a pity that Leo's blood will turn into flames as soon as it leaves his body. Otherwise, he could provide you with plenty of experimental materials, List said. An angry roar sounded in his mind. Roar? List didn't care about this at all. When he reached the perfect phase, his soul imprint would be left in Leo's mind, never to fade away. The moment he rode on the dragon, Leo was destined to be unable to escape the shackles of fate. He was destined to be ridden by List until he died. By the way, Achi, how do you think we should deal with the heavily injured light green gemstone dragon? According to the Dragon Knight Do-Chi manual, the light green gemstone dragon has the soul brand of the Eagle Kingdom's Dragon Knight. I'm afraid it will be very difficult to subdue it directly. Achi frowned and quickly replied, if we can find a way to imprison it, maybe Big Brother can use it as a source of resources for our country in the future. What if we can't find a way to imprison him? Well then let's kill it, Achi said matter-of-factly. List was speechless for a while. Let me think about it. You go on with your work. He rummaged through Carl Violet's belongings and tried to find some clues. Carl Violet did not have many belongings. Other than thunder, there was also a set of silver armor. The main body of the armor was made of a mixture of mithril and orichalcum. The details were embedded with many gems and World of Warcraft materials. There were 9 gems in total, 5 light green, 1 sapphire, 1 ruby, 1 topaz and 1 amethyst. The sapphire's attribute was strength, the ruby's attribute was combat energy enhancement, the topaz's attribute was toughness, and the amethyst's attribute was recovery speed. These 9 gems were all embedded in the waist of the armor. Unfortunately, the armor is a little small. I need to modify it before I can wear it. List felt it was a pity. The silver armor and the silver thunder's fury looked really cool. However, he was already 1.9 meters tall, and Carl Violet was at most 1.72 meters tall. There was a head difference in height, so he could not wear the armor without modifying it. I'll call this armor Thunder's Roar, no reason, just to match Thunder's fury. In addition to Thunder's fury and Thunder's Roar, Carl Violet also had an exquisite pendant that looked like a piece of tortoiseshell. It was about the size of a palm, flashing with a purple luster, and the lines were very vivid, not like an artificially made item. At first glance, List had a similar experience to seeing the phoenix feather. Using magic eyes, he could see that the tortoiseshell had a rich and substantial thunder magic, which was indeed comparable to the fire magic of the phoenix feather. So it could be a part of a lesser dragon's body? Since it's in the shape of a tortoiseshell, it should be the tortoiseshell of a lesser dragon turtle? A palm-sized lesser dragon turtle? List couldn't figure it out. Even if a lesser dragon didn't have the size of a dragon, it certainly wouldn't be small enough to be the size of a pet. Unless it's a newly hatched turtle. He had seen documentaries about leatherback turtles on Earth. The leatherback turtle, which could grow up to 1.5 meters in size, was the largest turtle in the world, but its hatchlings were only a few centimeters long. So for the time being, this purple, crystal-clear, gem-like tortoiseshell was regarded as the tortoiseshell of a lesser dragon turtle cub, and its value was equivalent to the phoenix feather. However, its value was mainly for a thunder knight, and it had no effect on a fire knight. Speaking of a thunder knight, it seems that my little follower, Emily, is very suitable for this tortoiseshell. Should I give it to her to assist in her training? List's mouth evoked a smile. that immature, shriveled girl has become a slim and graceful girl. Soon, he suppressed his impetuous thoughts and remembered that he still had clues about the lesser dragon phoenix. In the burning mountain of the Eagle Kingdom, there was likely to be a lesser dragon phoenix. He had to take some time to search for it. The smoke mission's prompt should not be empty. There really was a lesser dragon phoenix in the burning mountain. Unknowingly, he had almost reached the Heart Island. At this time, through Leo, List successfully sensed the breath of a dragon in the distance. The breath of a dragon spread very far. Ordinary creatures might not be able to detect it, but dragons could easily sense each other, unless they hid in a human's body like Leo. The sensing range was about a few kilometers. So in the blink of an eye, List had already seen the Heart Island in the distance, and a huge light green dragon lying on the Heart Island. The Heart Island was not big, and almost 1/3 of the area was occupied by the light green gemstone dragon. Its posture doesn't look like it's sleeping but more like it's fainting? When List saw this, a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He motioned for a chi to stop the shell first and then called Leo. Leo rushed out of his chest. Roar! In an instant, it changed into a majestic fire dragon. List directly rode on it and began to investigate the light green gemstone dragon from a high altitude, to prevent it from suddenly attacking people. However, when he looked through the dragon's eyes, his scalp went numb. Countless colorful magic threads, like tree roots, were piercing into the light green gemstone dragon's body. It seemed to be stealing the light green gemstone dragon's magic power. The light green magic light that should have been dazzling was now so dim that it seemed like it would be extinguished at any time. The sturdy light green gemstone dragon was now only skin and bones. Chapter 726. The light green gemstone dragon was dying. List soon discovered that the colorful roots came from the roots of a short shrub. The shrub grew in a small pit next to the light green gemstone dragon's head. If I remember correctly, I was the one who left this small pit. There used to be a mind fruit tree here. In order to prevent the mind fruit tree from losing its magic, I transplanted the whole dead mind fruit tree. I didn't expect a small tree to grow in the pit and absorb the magic of the light green gemstone dragon. After confirming that neither the light green gemstone dragon nor the small shrub was in danger, List suddenly jumped off Leo's back and jumped onto the body of the light green gemstone dragon. The skinny dragon was not dead, but its breath had been severely weakened and it was not far from death. The wounds on its body were not bleeding, nor were they healing. There were only cracks in the white flesh. That was the appearance of the muscles after the blood had been drained. No wonder the smoke mission told me that I could get a dragon. This light green gemstone dragon is dying, and there is no difficulty in getting it at all. List slightly complained in his heart. He knew that a dragon would not be so easy to get. At least a series of smoke missions had to be issued, and the threads of fate of the dragon bit by bit to finally fall into his hands. That was how Leo got the dragon. The invisible dragon had also done a lot of chain missions. He walked down the body of the light green gemstone dragon and slowly came to the small shrub. After confirming that there was really no danger, he suddenly waved his hand to indicate that a chi could come over. As for Leo, it seemed that after seeing the tragic state of the light green gemstone dragon, it was a little irritable and very afraid of the shrub in the small pit of the Mind Island. But List had no time to appease it for the time being. He squatted on the edge of the pit and carefully observed the small shrub in the pit. He found that the whole tree was flowing with colorful magic. He had only seen this kind of magic once. The magic of the mind fruit tree is this color. So this shouldn't be a new mind fruit tree, right? The growth position is the same, the magic color is the same, and this tree is still absorbing the magic of the dragon to grow. This is obviously the rhythm of breeding the mind fruit tree. When he thought about it this way, he immediately realized that something was different. On the branches of the small shrub, he successfully found 4 flower buds between the branches. They were very small and had not bloomed yet, but they seemed to be expanding very slowly. He carefully compared the withered branches of the spirit fruit tree in the center of the space ring and found that the two trees were very similar in terms of shape. The twists and turns of the branches and the structure were all the same. However, even the bark of the tree had fallen off, so it was impossible for it to return to its original state. A chi jumped down from the waterspout and joined the research team. List gently summoned the smoke mission. Mission completed. Reward: a light emerald dragon. The mission was completed without any surprises. Then a new mission appeared. Mission: You have obtained temporary ownership of a light green gemstone dragon, but its physical condition is not good, and its life is in danger. You have the choice to decide its fate. Do you want the light green gemstone dragon to be swallowed by the mind fruit tree and grow a new mystic dragon's mind fruit, or do you want to eradicate the mind fruit tree and save the light green gemstone dragon? Reward, a light emerald mine. Can I choose both? List was speechless. Whether it was the mystic dragon's mind fruit or the light green gemstone dragon, he wanted them both. The mystic dragon's mind fruit was the guarantee of riding a dragon in the future, and basically guaranteed victory in every battle of the soul. The light green gemstone dragon could be said to be both a fighting force and a resource production unit that could be used in time. Both sides were flesh and he could not bear to lose either. Uncomfortable. Why do I have to choose to take away the dragon that was promised to me? He turned around and asked, Achi, the situation now is very clear. On one side is the light green gemstone dragon. As long as the mind fruit tree is eradicated, the light green gemstone dragon can be saved. On the other side is the mystic dragon's mind fruit tree. As long as the mind fruit tree is allowed to swallow the light green gemstone dragon, it can bear 4 mystic dragon's mind fruits. He paused and asked, what do you think I should choose? Brother, Achi thinks that we should let the light green gemstone dragon be swallowed and cultivate the mystic dragon's mind fruit. Huh? List was surprised. It seemed that Achi's choice was a little too decisive. Achi said seriously, the light green gemstone dragon has the soul brand of the first-generation Dragon Knight. Even if it recovers, it may not be driven by you, brother. Moreover, the Eagle Kingdom will not let its own dragon wander outside. It is very risky to imprison it. The most cost-effective way is to exchange it for 4 mystic dragon's mind fruits. In the future, brother can ride 4 more dragons. What she said made sense. List did not know how to refute for a while. He wanted a dragon. He wanted a dragon now. Especially when the dragon happened to be in front of him, he wanted it even more. But as Achi said, it was not because he wanted a dragon that the light green gemstone dragon was willing to be his dragon. The soul brand was difficult to erase, unless he was willing to pay a mystic dragon's mind fruit as the price. This was obviously impossible. Saving a heavily injured dragon that was more than 400 years old would also have to sacrifice a future dragon. It was extremely not worth it. But it was difficult to really give it up. After all, the dragon was in front of him. The dragon that made countless knights crazy was at his fingertips. Even if he already had Leo, he still could not make a decision. Achi said again, brother, the light green gemstone dragon looks like it's dying. You should make a decision quickly. If you give up the light green gemstone dragon, Achi wants to do some experiments before the light green gemstone dragon dies. Witnessing the death of a dragon will definitely enrich Achi's understanding of the origin of magic. Looking at the dying light green gemstone dragon. Looking at the blooming fruit tree of the soul. Looking at Achi's expectant expression again, List finally made a decision. I give up the light green gemstone dragon. Achi, you do the experiment. He constantly comforted himself in his heart that this was to let Achi do the experiment. That was why he reluctantly gave up a dragon. Achi was more important than a dragon. Then Achi will do the experiment. Achi was very happy. She liked dragons, but after becoming a magic shooter, she liked to study dragons even more. It's really a big, beautiful dragon. Achi didn't expect to have a dragon as an experimental subject one day. I feel so happy. List looked up at the sky. At a 45-degree angle, he let out a faint sigh. From the corner of his eyes, he saw that Leo was still circling around the island of the soul, full of fear for the fruit tree of the soul on the island. He could instinctively feel that this tree was a great threat to the dragon. List suppressed the worry in his heart. He walked directly to the edge of the cliff, waved to Leo and put Leo into his body to sleep. To prevent Leo from being unable to bear it and destroying the fruit tree of the soul, an evil dragon would not easily escape when it encountered an existence that could threaten it. The best response was to face the difficulty and destroy it. He took back Leo. He walked back again and watched for a while how Achi collected specimens, how she fiddled with the experimental equipment, and how she stimulated the physiological response of the light green gemstone dragon. The more he watched, the more upset he felt. He sat on the edge of the small pit, staring at the 4 half-blooming flower buds in a daze. A dragon just like that. No. Chapter 727. The Heart Island, the Emerald Dragon, and the mind fruit tree were all worthy of research. Especially this newly grown mind fruit tree. List remembered clearly that he had dug out every single root of the previous mind fruit tree. So, in theory, the mind fruit tree could not be reborn. But it was still reborn. It seems that this island has an extraordinary origin. Even the mind fruit tree has special conditions for it to be reborn. It's not a simple inheritance of sprouting and blossoming. He looked at the light green gemstone dragon, whose aura had weakened to the point where it could no longer condense. He kept thinking. Achi was doing research. She tried to use the magic potion to maintain the life of the light green gemstone dragon, but the magic effect of the magic potion was too weak to maintain the dissipation of the light green gemstone dragon's magic. She even wanted to use the magic of the weave to replace the light green gemstone dragon and accept the absorption of the mind fruit tree. But the magic of the weave did not seem to be compatible with the mind fruit tree. Brother, the roots of the mind fruit tree are very strange. They do not come directly from the ground and there are not many roots at all. These roots are more like transmission channels in the weave. They do not exist in physical form. This shows the nature of the weave of the mind fruit tree. So it is also a small version of the weave? Somewhat similar, but its weave is more special. It is single-minded and overbearing. It only absorbs and does not dissipate. Achi tried hard to describe. She did not have the eye of magic, but she had a very keen perception. She fully sensed how the mind fruit tree swallowed the light green gemstone dragon. Right, since the magic of the weave is incompatible with the mind fruit tree, but the magic of the magic potion is compatible. Can my dragon's fighting energy be compatible too? List suddenly thought. If I use my dragon's fighting energy instead and supplement it with the magic potion, can I keep the light green gemstone dragon alive? Although reason made him choose the enchanting dragon's soul fruit, he could not remain indifferent to the death of a dragon. As long as there was a chance, he was willing to save the light green gemstone dragon. Achi thought seriously and said, "It is possible." Then let's try it. Leo and I are one. If necessary, it can transfer magic to me. My dragon's fighting energy should be able to last for a long time. Then brother, use your dragon's fighting energy to transfer into the light green gemstone dragon's body. I will build a transmission channel between you and the mind fruit tree. Alright. Although there were still many unanswered questions, the most important thing now was to find out how to save the dragon. He immediately activated the surging dragon energy in his body and poured out all the potions in his space ring for himself and the light green gem dragon to consume in order to sustain the fruit of soul's consumption. Roar! Leo sensed that List was constantly releasing his combat energy and quickly objected to what List was doing. However, he was forcefully suppressed and could only succumb to List's tyranny. Ever since he became one with the dragon, he found that as a tyrannical dragon, he was actually not as tyrannical as List in many aspects. This human was a boorish fellow who would drug them as he pleased. Oh! Roar! It could only watch helplessly. List single-handedly transmitted the dragon's combat energy into the body of the light green gem dragon. Relying on the insight of the Eye of Magic, he quickly transmitted the combat energy to the magic channel established by Achi, and then used this to connect with the colorful roots of the Fruit of Soul. Soon, the dragon's battle energy was devoured by the Soul Fruit Tree. With the addition of a new Dragon Knight, the breath of the light green gem dragon was finally stabilized. Achi continued to provide potions to the light green gem dragon and injected them into its body, helping the light green gem dragon to restore its magic power. A dynamic balance was quickly reached. Okay, I can stabilize the transmission. Achi continued to experiment, study the light green gem dragon, study the Fruit of Soul, study everything that can be studied on this island. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Maybe you can take this opportunity to crack the deeper mystery of the magic net. List felt that he was in a good state, so he did not need Achi to waste time to save the dragon. He hoped that Achi could crack the secret. First, Achi needed to accumulate knowledge to grow and become stronger. Second, he was very curious about everything on the Island of Soul. The dragon fed the Fruit of Soul. The Fruit of Soul helped in the Battle of Soul. After the Battle of Soul, he could ride many dragons and catch them to feed the Fruit of Soul. This was simply a perfect cycle, as if he could see countless dragons surrounding him. At that time he would not be a simple dragon knight, but a knight of the dragons, a dragon shepherd. If he continued to cultivate the Fruit of Soul and led a large group of dragons to search for dragons, he might have a chance to unify the legendary continent. By then, thousands of dragons would come to him. He would establish the 10,000 Dragon Empire and be called the Dragon Emperor. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Wonderful. Wonderful. It's just that the speed at which the fruit of soul blooms seems to be a little slow. List had been fantasizing about how cool he would be as the Dragon Emperor for a long time, but the 4 flower buds had not completely bloomed. At this time he realized that his dragon's battle energy was almost depleted, and there were not many potions left. Achi, who had been busy doing research, also realized the seriousness of the problem. "Brother, I'm afraid that the difficulty of brewing the fruit of soul is much greater than expected. I'm afraid that you can't maintain the condensation of the 4 fruits with only your dragon's battle energy and the magic power of the light green gem dragon. How should we solve this? Is Leo's magic power enough?" Roar. It shouldn't be enough. We still don't know the speed of the fruit of soul's condensation, but judging from the speed at which the magic is brewing when it blooms, the consumption of the light green gem dragon's magic power, and brother's magic power and potion reserves, we can only cultivate 1 fruit before it's depleted. 1 fruit. List was speechless. Achi nodded. This is under the premise that the life of the light green gem dragon is guaranteed. If we don't have to guarantee its life, we can probably cultivate 2 fruits. If we're lucky, we can cultivate 3 fruits. In other words, no matter what, we have to give up 1 fruit. Yes. How do we give up one of them and pluck the flower directly? Achi can cut off the channel of magic power transmission. Then we'll cut off 1 first and carefully calculate whether we should give up the other flowers or not. List made a prompt decision. There was no time for hesitation. He did not want to fail because of greed. Achi quickly cast magic and cut off the magic channel of one of the flowers. Then the flower could no longer absorb magic power and stopped blooming. Seeing this, List suddenly thought, "Achi, if we build a magic channel for it again, will it be able to grow again?" Achi's eyes lit up. "It's possible. Then let's try." When the channel was re-established as List guessed, the flower bloomed again. This time, List's disappointment was swept away. Achi cut off the magic channel of the 3 flowers. "We'll cultivate them one by one. Let's cultivate 1 fruit first, then talk about the rest." He even thought of another way to cultivate the fruit of soul's soul, to provide it with magic power intermittently. This way, without harming the dragon's life, they could cultivate more fruits over a longer period of time. In that case, it was a brilliant and glorious road to riches. Chapter 728. This chapter is Ice Tyrannosaurus Rex. After draining a large amount of Leo's magic power, the first soul fruit of the mysterious dragon was finally ripened. Under the afternoon sun, it shone with a colorful luster. It was rounder than an apple, and there was no fragrance or loss of magic power. Without the eyes of magic, one would only think that it was a fruit that looked like an apple. Even Achi, as a magic shooter, could not sense its magic power. The magic power of the ripened soul fruit flowed inside, and the colorful luster gradually turned into the color of chaos. It was neither black nor white, illusory yet real, like fog and haze. The colorful luster is because the magic power shows various properties, while the chaos is because the magic power has integrated its own properties during ripening, and appears to have no properties. List guessed that this was the result of the convergence of the magic particles. Through previous research, the properties of magic power were related to the movement of magic particles. The units of magic power were runes, the units of runes were magic power, and the units of magic power were small magic particles. The movement and stillness of magic particles were the main factors for magic power to turn into matter or matter into magic power. Accelerating the movement of magic particles could be seen as the process of casting magic. Mages used their mental power to interfere with the movement of magic particles to release magic power. At the level of magic shooter, they could feel that magic particles were also subdivided, and the subdivided smaller units were magic particles. The different movement of magic particles gave different properties to magic power. This was the research result of Achi's careful study of the magic net. Her own body had already been elementalized, which meant that the smallest unit of magic power in her body was a kind of magic particle with water properties. However, pure water magic had too many limitations. For example, not being able to fly was a huge drawback. For this reason, Achi had always wanted to complete the interference of the magic particles in her elementalized body through in-depth study of the magic net, so that she could release other types of magic. This research was carried out cautiously. After List knew about it, he repeatedly warned her to take it slow and not to be impatient. If she failed, Achi would be the one destroyed, and List was absolutely reluctant to do so. It was also because of List's interference that Achi's research on magic particles did not make much progress, and she still could not release magic of other schools. He was already convinced that the smoke mission was a special product of the fusion of the smoke dragon's power of fate and his subconscious. It was driven by his own will. As an adult, his subconscious would never have such an either-or idea. Being inclusive was the way to go. Or is there anything else I overlooked? For example, the light emerald dragon can't be saved. As soon as this thought arose, a Chi's shout came, "Brother, the breath of the light emerald dragon is stable. Its life is saved." Really? Well done. List responded. Then he fell into his previous thoughts. Since the light emerald dragon has survived, does that mean that there is something wrong with the mind fruit tree? Will it wither without the magic power of the light emerald dragon? Thinking of this, he was suddenly shocked. He quickly observed the mind fruit tree. Sure enough, he found a serious phenomenon. The flowers of the mind fruit tree were withering at a very slow rate, or the whole tree was losing magic power at a slow rate. The severed colorful magic roots were collapsing. Without the magic supply, the fruit tree seemed to be unable to maintain its own magic balance. Chi, come and take a look. The mind fruit tree is in trouble. He called Chi over, and the two of them worked together to find a way to stop the withering of the mind fruit tree. However, whether it was the Dragon Knight or the magic shooter, the withering of the mind fruit tree was irreversible when they could not continue to provide dragon magic or dragon aura. After a few breaths, List said decisively, "It seems that the mind fruit tree can't survive in the wild. We can only kill the light emerald dragon to help it ripen a new mind fruit, but the value of 1-for-1 is not great. Chi, according to your judgment, it seems that the light emerald dragon can only ripen one more fruit?" "Yes, brother. If it was the light emerald dragon in its heyday, it could definitely ripen 3 or more fruits, but it was seriously injured. If it wasn't for your dragon aura, it couldn't even ripen 2 fruits. Then don't trade." List had an idea. "Let's dig it up and stuff it into the space ring. The space ring could stop everything. Unless the soul was protected by special means, it would die if it entered. Other objects, whether it was plants or flames, would be absolutely still after entering." Thinking of this, the two of them quickly dug out the mind fruit tree and stuffed it into the space ring. But after putting it in, before List could relax, his face changed. Something is wrong. The mind fruit tree is still losing magic power. Chapter 729. The mind fruit tree in the space ring was still losing its magic power and could not be stopped at all. For now, he could either re-establish the magic channel for the mind fruit tree and use the emerald dragon to cultivate the last mind fruit, or let it lose its magic power and waste the 3 flower buds that could not bloom. Forget it. List hesitated for a moment, then decisively put down the struggle in his heart. He took the mind fruit tree out of the space ring and handed it to Chi. "Take it for research. Carefully study the unique characteristics of the mind fruit tree while it has not completely withered." It was naturally the best result to unearth the secret of the mind fruit tree. It was far more valuable than killing the emerald dragon in exchange for a mind fruit. Chi began to study the mind fruit tree. List did not stand aside. He also used magic eyes to constantly observe the magic power of the mind fruit tree and provide real-time information to Chi. At the same time, he took the bone shovel and continued to dig the previous small pit. There used to be a fruit tree that bore 3 mind fruits in the small pit. Now, a mind fruit tree had grown here. There must be a secret in this land. He kept digging with the bone shovel and observing with the eye of magic. Almost every shovel of soil contained a seed that could stimulate the growth of the mind fruit tree. Now he no longer thought that the mind fruit tree was just a special plant. It could make the gem of the invisible dragon ineffective. It showed how special the nature of the mind fruit tree was. He even had some bold guesses in his mind. The mind fruit tree might be related to the holy dragons. So far, he had come into contact with 2 kinds of holy dragons. The space gem of the invisible dragon was extraordinary, and the power of fate of the smoke dragon was even more terrifying. From the point of view of production resources, the gem dragon and the metal dragon were undoubtedly very important. But from the point of view of the special nature of power, the elemental dragon's willful switching between magic power form and flesh form was undoubtedly more magical than the gem dragon and the metal dragon. The magic of the holy dragon was needless to say. In other words, the power level of the holy dragon was obviously higher than that of the elemental dragon, and the power level of the elemental dragon was higher than that of the metal dragon and gem dragon. To be able to make the static effect of the space gem ineffective, it shows that the power level of the mind fruit tree is at least the same as that of the invisible dragon. It also uses the devouring dragon as nourishment and bears fruit that can bind the dragon's spiritual power. It shows that the mind fruit tree is definitely related to dragons. His thoughts continued to wander. Legend had it that the Elven King could transform into a forest, and even dragons lived in it. Was the soul fruit tree related to the Elven King? Or is it related to the Emerald Dragon's dream power or the Twilight Dragon's time power? It should have nothing to do with the life force of the fairy dragon, or is it really just some kind of magical plant? The bone shovel dug shovel by shovel. Soil had piled up around the small pit, but List did not find anything related to the seeds, nor did he find anything with magic power. After digging down for about 2 meters, they reached the rocks under the soil. This was a rocky island. As a dragon knight, List had great strength and stamina. His digging efficiency was extremely high. After an hour, he had dug out a circular pit with a diameter of 1 meter. At the bottom of the pit were flat rocks, the same rocks as the cliffs around the island. The rock is not broken. It's a whole body. I can't tell what kind of rock it is. List did not know much about geography, so he could not deduce how the Heart Island was formed. However, one thing was clear: it was not a volcanic island, so it had nothing to do with volcanic eruptions. So here's the problem. The bottom is a rock layer. It's impossible to hide a seed, so how did the heart fruit tree grow? I was very sure that if all the roots of the withered heart fruit tree were dug out, it was unlikely that a single root would remain and grow into a new heart fruit tree. There were many doubts, but since he could not find the seed, he could only think that he had done something dirty last time and left a root behind. It was easy to prove this. I have 2 heart fruit trees now and I have plenty of roots. Does this mean that I can continue to artificially cultivate the heart fruit tree? He filled a pot with soil, buried a withered root and put it in his spatial ring. Then he broke the rock, made sure that there was still rock under the rock and filled it with the surrounding soil. If his conjecture was correct, and the roots were the seeds, then by getting some dragon blood from the light green gemstone dragon, the soil in the pot would breed a new fruit of the mind sooner or later. If the root was not a seed but related to the environment, then the backfilling place might grow a new heart fruit tree. In short, for a long time in the future, the Heart Island would be a key research target. His gaze returned to the heart fruit tree from the big pit. The heart fruit tree, which had lost its magic power, was withering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Achi carefully cut many small pieces and experimented with different methods. List could not help at all. He paid attention to the light green gemstone dragon that was still unconscious. The light green gemstone dragon was so thin that it was only skin and bones, and its wounds had not healed. Only its weak breathing existed. However, its magic power was becoming stable. Although it was weak, it was recovering bit by bit. After all, he had fed it a lot of magic potions. I don't know when the light green gemstone dragon will wake up, and how long it will take to recover from its injuries. The high magic power in a dragon's body recovers very quickly, but this time, its supreme magic was probably shaken. It will be difficult for it to recover. Leo relied on the volcano supreme magic and the remaining supreme magic of the fire dragon to grow so big. Supreme magic was the dragon will, the ultimate magic power that maintained Leo's switch between magic form and flesh form. It was also the magic power left by the previous fire dragon. High magic was the magic power that the dragon casually emitted. It was on the same level as the magic power of the magic net. High magic was easy to recover, and it could be quickly recovered with some medicine and meat. Supreme magic, on the other hand, had to be refined and condensed bit by bit. If the light green gemstone dragon wanted to recover its previous strength, it would probably take more than a year and a half. But it's also good. When its strength is weakened, it will be a chance for me to find a way to conquer it. List touched the scales on the light green gemstone dragon's neck, which were still warm, and smiled. The process was a bit tortuous, but in the end, this dragon was captured by me. He squinted at the exposed dragon tooth platform. I definitely can't bear to use the enchanting dragon soul fruit, but I also have to deal with the brand of the first dragon knight. He quickly wondered if he should ride on the light green gemstone dragon and give it a fierce spiritual battle while it was unconscious and its spirit force was weakened. If he erased the spiritual brand, the light green gemstone dragon would completely surrender. Chapter 730. The position of the Dragon Fang platform was very strange. It was located at the point where the dragon's neck and torso connected, between the shoulder blades of the wings. When the dragon flapped its wings and flew, the dragon fang platform happened to be under the protection of the wings. This ensured the knight's safety. Only when the knight's back was exposed would the dragon knight be threatened. And the gap between the wings and the neck was the dragon knight's attack area. The length of the dragon lance did not need to be longer than the dragon's body, because the dragon's fighting energy could be released. The dragon lance only needed to ensure that it could reach out from the gap when the wings vibrated and aim in all directions. A true close combat assassination required the dragon to turn over and attack back to back. The rest of the time, one just needed to cooperate with the dragon. The dragon would be the main force in melee combat, and the knight would be the output of fighting energy. So the dragon was the perfect mount for the knight. The dragon knight was the best example of man and mount as one. The strength of the dragon combined with the wisdom of the man made the dragon knight the peak power to rule the world. The fallen light green gem dragon no longer had the ability to protect its dragon fang platform. List did not know if there was a dragon knight who had used this method to ride a dragon, but the opportunity was in front of him and he would not miss it. Very good. When the light green gem dragon fell, there was no defense, and the dragon fang platform was completely exposed. The position is very suitable for riding. With a leap, he jumped onto the neck of the light green gem dragon, took 2 more steps to the dragon fang platform and stepped on the bone. Then he sat down. His mind was in a trance, and he felt the fighting energy in his body begin to surge, as if it wanted to connect with the light green gem dragon's magic power. But after several surges, it broke at the critical moment. It was as if the light green gem dragon's magic power could not complete the connection and support the spiritual battle. This was completely different from the first time List rode Leo. When he rode on Leo's dragon fang platform, he instantly connected his fighting energy and magic power. Then his mind rushed into Leo's mind and started the spiritual battle. Is the light green gem dragon too weak, or is it resisting me riding it? With a thought, List decided to take the initiative. He madly circulated his fighting energy according to the trajectory when he rode Leo, forcibly capturing the light green gem dragon's magic power and completing the connection. His behavior was rough, but this method worked quickly. When the magic power and the aura were connected, List quickly felt the pressure on his body increase with the help of the special nature of the aura and magic power. With just one look, he seemed to have already understood the identity of the other party, the royal dragon knight of the Eagle Kingdom more than 300 years ago, Abraham Moonlight Silver. He was also the first-generation dragon knight of the light green gemstone dragon, the person who left the soul imprint. So you are the soul imprint of the dragon knight. In this case, killing you is the key to winning the soul battle? List did not know how the other dragon knight reached an agreement with the soul imprint, and whether or not he also wanted to kill this dragon knight incarnation of the soul imprint. But he knew that what he had to do was to fight. An inch longer, an inch stronger. Abraham Moonlight Silver's soul imprint was just a will projection, but it had all the combat experience of the dragon knight. It was not known how strong he was when he was alive, but the dragon knight who could leave a soul imprint were all dragon knights at the peak stage, and their strength was definitely not weak. After a few fights, List found that he did not have the slightest upper hand, and was forcibly suppressed by the other party with a dragon spear. However, he soon discovered an advantageous place. Abraham Moonlight Silver, who was holding the dragon spear, did not fight smoothly, especially with the 5-meter-long dragon spear. It was inconvenient to change direction and brandish it, not to mention to use exquisite do-chi moves. List relied more on the fact that he was not used to the environment here, so he forcibly suppressed it. He is the soul imprint of the dragon knight and he is holding a dragon spear instead of a big sword. Maybe he should have been riding a light green gemstone dragon? The first-generation dragon knight could ride a dragon, and the dragon knight inheritance needed to face the soul imprint of the dragon knight who rode a dragon, and naturally could not erase the soul imprint. But now, the soul imprint of the dragon knight did not have a dragon. Chapter 731. This chapter is for Great Master Lu. List already had a plan on how to destroy Abraham Moonlight Silver's soul imprint. He took advantage of the time when his opponent needed to fiddle with the dragon spear because it was stuck in the bone to look at the smoke still lingering around his body. He thought for a moment and said, "Now is not a battle of dragon knights, but a sword battle without a dragon. It is the best time to destroy the soul imprint." As his eyes flickered, His will began to guide the smoke that belonged to the power of fate. Then, I want an invincible dragon tooth. Boom. The smoke continued to rush toward the big treasure sword. The fiery red sword suddenly changed shape, turning into a rough triangular sword. The fire attribute fighting energy on it became even stronger. List did not know what a dragon tooth looked like. He had never seen it before. But he had seen how sharp Leo's teeth were. He could imagine what a divine weapon made of dragon teeth would look like. Thus this fiery red dragon tooth was born. Feeling the great power of the dragon Fang divine weapon in his hand, the corners of his mouth curled into an elegant smile again. He looked at Abraham Moonlight Silver, who was holding his spear and attacking again. You are just a dragon knight without a dragon, but although I don't have Leo to help me, I have more power. He raised the sword. He swung the sword. Pucci. The tip of the dragon spear in Abraham Moonlight Silver's hand was directly cut off by the fiery red dragon tooth. Then List swung the sword again and again, cutting the dragon spear into countless pieces. Finally he slashed at Abraham Moonlight Silver. A sword made of flames directly cut Abraham in half. Under the blessing of the power of fate, the imaginary dragon tooth was invincible. The soul imprint of the first-generation Dragon Knight was not enough. He passed over the bloody body that was broken in half. List held the flaming dragon tooth and was about to slaughter the sleeping light green gem dragon. Suddenly, the two halves of the Dragon Knight's body on the ground quickly melted. Abraham Moonlight Silver's figure reappeared in front of him. He held the 5-meter-long dragon spear and stabbed over without saying a word. List was shocked, but he did not panic. This was the spiritual world and anything could happen. After dodging the other party's ferocious attacks and finding an opportunity to counterattack, the dragon tooth divine weapon slashed a few times, chopping Abraham and the dragon spear into pieces like chopping vegetables. He looked at the corpse at his feet. When he looked at the spot where the corpse was, there was nothing left. His brain spun rapidly. A soul imprint can be reborn infinitely in the mind world? As if to prove his imagination, the corpse in front of him quickly disappeared, and then Abraham Moonlight Silver appeared in front of him again. Without a word of nonsense. Chapter 732. He got a soul fruit, successfully rode the light green gem dragon, and pacified the little fire dragon Leo. This trip to the Heart Island was perfect. Achi told List that all the branches of the soul fruit tree had withered. He summoned the smoke mission and it was finally completed. Mission completed. Reward, a light green gem mine. Indeed, one of the light green gem dragon and the soul fruit tree had to die to be considered a success. Now this Heart Island has probably started to transform into a light green gem mine. I wonder how many qualified gems and crystal mines can be mined. The gem dragon didn't produce gems like the invisible dragon, which spat out gems from its mouth. Instead, the gem dragon's aura would infect the earth veins and produce crystal mines. In the crystal mines, there would be some fully developed gems and a lot of defective gems. Light green crystals were the associated minerals of light green gems. With the amount of blood the light green gem dragon lost this time, it would not be a problem for it to infect the entire Heart Island. After all, normally gem dragons could infect the mines with their aura, but this time the light green gem dragon was infecting the mines with its life force. It was not easy. Take care of yourself, light green gem dragon. List felt the soul of the light green gem dragon that was still sleeping inside. I didn't expect that my family would have a mine. He got the resources to build a country just like that. Unfortunately, the location of the Heart Island was not good. It was too close to the mainland and the Grand Duchy of Sapphire. Fortunately, it was not on the sea route or it would be extremely easy to expose his location. Now, there was not only a mine on the island but also a recovering dragon. He must not let the outside world find it. He sighed for a moment and paid attention to the new smoke mission. Mission: the light green gemstone dragon used its vitality to produce a mystic dragon soul fruit and a light green gemstone mine. However, the magic that was leaked out also changed the environment of the Heart Island. The trees on the island may have quietly changed. Please pay close attention to the changes in these trees. Reward: a large area of mutated trees. Is it talking about this forest that looks like a tree fern? List looked around the small forest on the island. Because the light green gem dragon had fainted, a quarter of the forest had been destroyed. These trees did not have names yet. However, it was very similar to the ferns of the dinosaur era on Earth, the kind of tall, straight trunks plant with strange leaves. On Earth, ferns had gradually evolved from tall woody plants to low herbaceous plants. The only remaining woody fern was the national first-class protected plant, Cyathea fern. How about cyan fern? He liked to equate the plants in this world with the plants on Earth. Whenever they were similar, he would give them a name from Earth. Therefore, he quickly determined that the plants in this small forest were all called Cyathea ferns. While Achi was busy with her experiments, Link activated his Eye of Magic and kept an eye on the forest, paying attention to any changes in the cypress fern. Before the mission notification, he had no idea what the wood fern was used for. It did not bear fruit, nor was it a magic ingredient. Furthermore, its wood was not strong enough. But now that he was infected by the dragon's magic, there might be some magical changes that were worth looking forward to. Of course, List did not put all his energy on the Cyathea forest. He had to continue to help Achi with her experiments and think about the follow-up plans for the light green gem dragon and the Heart Island. The Heart Island must be protected, waiting for the development of the light green gem mine and the possible growth of the third heart fruit tree. The light green gem dragon must be protected. It was not safe to leave it here to recuperate. If the Eagle Kingdom launched a search, it was likely to be exposed. It was conceivable that the Eagle Kingdom would go crazy if the Dragon Knight died and the dragon was lost. The sea would definitely not be calm in the near future. It might even cause a war between the three kingdoms in the northeast corner of the legendary continent. The Dragon Knight's move could affect the whole. The death of Carl Low Violet, the birth of the Dragon Knight List, and the magic shooter Achi were all big events that could cause an earthquake. Of course, List was not afraid. He could run away even if he could not win against Achi. In this sea, Achi's speed was definitely the fastest. She could also help him dive into the deep sea. The only thing he needed to worry about was his family. Fortunately, he had been separated from his family. Although they were not separated, they were not close. Under normal circumstances, he would be regarded as a single individual. No one would vent their anger on his family. But no matter what, the light green gem dragon must be protected. We can't let it stay unconscious here. Otherwise, any bird in the World of Warcraft could eat it alive. Maybe we should transport the light green gem dragon to the Dodo Island and hide it instead of leaving it on the Heart Island. The Dodo Island was far away from the mainland and the Grand Duchy of Sapphire. The Eagle Kingdom would not notice such a small island no matter how they searched. They would not easily feel the aura of the light green gem dragon's radiation. It's decided then. When Achi is done with her experiments, let her help transport the light green gem dragon to the Dodo Island. Achi could control the water spout, lift the light green gem dragon, and then run all the way to the Dodo Island. Otherwise, Leo wouldn't have been able to carry a dragon that weighed a few hundred tons. Also, there wasn't a ship that was big enough to transport a 45-meter-long adult dragon. Just the dragon's aura alone was enough to make the crew foam at the mouth. Night fell. There were no visible changes in the cypress forest. Achi was still busy with her experiments. Whether it was the dragon or the soul fruit tree, there were a lot of secrets waiting for her to crack. However, after a big meal, List directly interrupted Achi's experiment. Don't be busy with experiments at night. Work and rest is life. But Achi still has a lot of experiments to finish. Achi was reluctant to rest, but List insisted. Throw the unfinished experiment materials into the space ring. If you can't fit yours, put mine. Anyway, you are not allowed to do experiments at night. Go to bed early. He was always afraid of the sorcerers and did not want Achi to be crazy for the pursuit of truth. Recently, he vaguely found that Achi was too obsessed with magic, which was not a good sign. As a young siren, she must have the right values. Achi, however, said coquettishly, "But brother, Achi can't sleep without experiments." Then look at the stars. Come, let me teach you something new about how to observe the stars. It is said that there were astrologers in the Moon Empire. The calendar we use was left by the astrologers. I have a plan to rebuild the astrology system. Maybe you can help me with this idea. Achi nodded. Okay. At the beginning of the teaching, List tried to establish the foundation of astronomy with the little knowledge he learned from watching TV. The stars in the sky are divided into stars and planets. Most of the stars we see with our eyes are stars, but there are also planets among them. The position of stars in the sky is almost the same, but the position of planets in the sky is always changing. Observe their orbit and calculate with gravity. Then we can infer whether we are in a huge star system. However, Achi suddenly asked, "Then what is the use of knowing these planets?" We still need a lens tube to protect the light source. What about this? Achi waved her hand and countless streams of water gathered in front of her. Then the streams of water quickly formed a cylinder, and through some special arrangement, it became an opaque, pitch-black frosted surface. There were also two concave and convex mirrors formed by the streams of water, which were directly embedded in the mirror cylinder. And so a telescope was made. Brother, Achi's telescope can see the stars in the sky. Oh. List was a little envious of Achi's ability to control water. Not bad, not bad. Now that you have grasped the specific principle, the next step is to try to adjust the thickness of the concave-convex mirror and the combination of the lens barrel and the objective lens to find the most suitable viewing magnification. At that moment he quickly lost interest in teaching Achi how to look at the stars and let Achi carefully adjust the telescope she made with water. He himself lay on the body of the light green gemstone dragon, thinking about something. The secret book of dragon fighting, the light green gemstone mine, the mutated cypress tree, the surname and the name of the country, the material support, the change of the title, the reaction of the Eagle Kingdom, and countless other thoughts flashed in his mind. The night gradually deepened and before he knew it, he had fallen asleep. The next day before dawn, List had already woken up. He found that Achi had crawled into his arms and slept intimately against him. Her petite body was a little cool, and the early winter frost condensed on his armor and Achi's magic cloak. Last night he forgot to open the tent, and he didn't take out the calming bead. Fortunately, both he and Achi had a physique far beyond that of ordinary people, so this little bit of cold was nothing. Achi slept very lightly. When List woke up, the subtle movements of his body had already awakened her. Stretching, she left List's body and after saying goodbye, she took out her toiletries to clean up. List also turned over and jumped off the light green gemstone dragon. He washed his face, brushed his teeth and did some simple cleaning. He then used the eye of magic to observe the cypress tree forest, and immediately found something strange. The entire cypress tree forest was filled with a light green glow, the same as the light green gemstone dragon's magic glow. But if he looked closely he would find a slight difference. The light green gemstone dragon's magic glow was more solid, while the cypress tree forest's magic glow was fainter. He broke off a leaf and sensed it, and immediately found that the cypress tree's magic glow was low magic, different in nature from the light green gemstone dragon's high magic glow. So these cypress trees have become magic ingredients? If that was the case, it was a good harvest. The magic of a dragon could actually infect magic ingredients. But then he found that a few cypress trees with a more intense glow were the ones close to the light green gemstone dragon's body. The trunks, branches, and leaves of these cypress trees were actually showing signs of turning transparent. He peeled off a piece of bark and carefully played with it. Soon he saw the changes. It seems that the cypress tree isn't transforming into a magic ingredient, but into a stone, or crystal? Especially one of the cypress tree ferns, whose leaves had actually crystallized. Through the eye of magic's inspection, half of the leaves had become real crystals, while the rest were only partially crystallized, and magic was still slowly gathering. Achi, come take a look. Coming. Achi was also very surprised. Brother, these cypress trees have actually grown into crystals. Look at this leaf, it's no different from a crystal. List said directly, carefully compare the crystal to the leaf and see what the difference is. Okay. After instructing Achi to compare, List continued to observe the entire cypress tree forest. Gradually he found a sign. The cypress ferns closer to the light green gemstone dragon were more crystallized, and the thicker the trunk of the mature cypress ferns were, the more crystallized they were, and the mature leaves were the first to crystallize. It seems that after they mature they start to crystallize and the immature parts continue to grow. After an hour, he concluded that this forest of cypress ferns had mutated into crystal cypress ferns. Cypress ferns that could grow into crystals would directly crystallize when they matured. On the back of the crystallized leaves were rings of red ribbons, like the seeds of the cypress ferns. These seeds were not crystallized. On the contrary, with a wave of his hand, he could see many tiny seeds scattering into the air. Every tiny seed carried a faint, almost invisible magical glow as it scattered in all directions. He couldn't help but summon the smoke mission. Chapter 734. A tree fern that could grow into a crystal was undoubtedly a very strange mutation, but it was difficult to tell whether this mutation was good or bad. The reason was simple. It was a mutation that relied on the magic leaked by the light green sapphire dragon. In other words, the magic that should have formed a crystal mine underground was directly grown in the form of a tree fern. Both were crystals, and it was not clear which was of higher quality. In this case, the crystal tree fern was completely superfluous. I still need to experiment. I'll collect a batch of tree fern seeds now and transplant them to the territory to see if I can grow a crystal tree fern. If it can grow crystals without the magic of the dragon, then the crystal tree fern will be valuable. If it can't be separated from the dragon, then it will be worthless. List analyzed as he collected the seeds. Achi nodded. Brother, the place where the dragon lives should emit magic every day. It takes too long to form a vein. Maybe the crystal tree fern can quickly convert the dragon's magic into crystals. That's a good idea. When I start building a dragon nest in the future, I'll have a variety of crystal tree ferns. He gently scraped the back of the crystal leaves with a knife, and the mature crystal tree fern seeds naturally fell off. He put them in a sealed leather bag and threw them into a space ring. They could be stored for a long time. After collecting seeds in this way for a while and making sure that there were enough, List stopped. He didn't touch any of the crystal tree ferns for the time being. Instead, he summoned the little fire dragon, Leo. Leo, grab the light green sapphire dragon by its tail and throw it into the sea. Roar! Leo answered excitedly. He swooped down and accurately grabbed the thick tail of the light green sapphire dragon with his two hind claws. Then he flapped his wings and flew, dragging the sleeping body of the light green sapphire dragon up little by little. The whole process was very strenuous, but he was in high spirits. Leo was less than 100 tons, but the light green sapphire dragon was hundreds of tons. It was normal for him to be struggling. However, when the light green sapphire dragon was hung up, Leo suddenly let out a deafening roar, turned his body, and threw the light green sapphire dragon into the sea like a discus. Roar! Roar! Leo was getting more and more excited after being able to torture other dragons like this. If he worked harder, he might be able to directly release the power of infection in his bloodline and infect dragon-type creatures. Perhaps this would be a good way to induce Leo to infect dragon-type creatures in the future. The light green gemstone dragon that was thrown into the sea did not sink into the sea. Halfway through, Achi manipulated countless waterspouts to catch the behemoth. List flew into the sky and landed lightly on the light green gem dragon's back. Achi also leaped onto the dragon's back. Let's go to Dodo Island. We'll settle the light green gemstone dragon there. List gestured to Leo, who was still hovering in the sky. Come back. Brr. Leo rammed his head into List's chest. With Achi controlling the water, even if he was dragging a dragon, his speed was not slow and it was not too strenuous. The sea was Achi's home ground. As a magic shooter, a siren had unpredictable abilities. Achi, since you have such means, I think we should bring a big ship when we go out in the future. You can stand at the bow and control the ship. The ship doesn't need sails or sailors. It only needs servants to clean up, organize food, and manage supplies. This was the idea of a luxury cruise ship. With Achi's protection, not to mention that the storm could not destroy it, even if they encountered a subdragon sea monster, they would not necessarily have any trouble. The idea of a tanker quickly attracted Achi. Brother, can we build a magic laboratory on the ship and assign a few magic apprentices to take care of it? She was still obsessed with the research of magic and truth. She was addicted to experiments and could not extricate herself. Of course. Then Achi's future research will be much more convenient. Don't always think about research. You are still young and so am I. We still have a lot of time to share. Enjoying life is the most important thing. While persuading Achi, List called out the smoke mission and continued to look at the new mission that had just been issued. Mission: the brilliance of the dragon-slaying war and the difficult choice of the mind fruit tree have consumed too much of your energy. Although your body is still strong, your spirit has long been exhausted. Why not relax and enjoy the cheers that an 18-year-old dragon knight should receive? Reward: a sprite worm. Oh. It has been a long time since I have seen such a familiar reward. Turned out to be a sprite worm. As my strength improved, the reward of the smoke mission became more and more generous. It gradually changed from sprites to dragons. I did not expect that today there would be another big turn, and I would return to a sprite worm. He vaguely felt that the reward of the smoke mission, in addition to the surrounding environment, was more related to the power of fate. As he continued to progress, the power of fate seemed to have begun to increase, and the threads of fate that could be pried became more and more violent. The fire dragon and the light emerald dragon successively fell under the calculations of the power of fate. Even the occasional sprite worm reward began to be rewarded with several, rather than just one. Could it be that when I erased the first-generation Dragon Knight's mind brand, I overconsumed the smoke, resulting in the weakening of the power of fate? At that time, when the smoke transformed into the Dragon Fang magic weapon continuously attacked the mind brand, its blade showed signs of collapse. So it is not my spirit that is exhausted, but the power of fate has weakened? List suddenly became a little nervous. The smoke mission was his greatest reliance. It could be said that the originally mediocre brain, talent and courage of Earth over time man could grow into an unprecedented genius from a different world by relying on the smoke mission. Without the smoke mission, he might still be a countryside baron who steadily developed the flower town. With the smoke mission, he rose step by step and became the new overlord of this blue sea. It seems that I have to be cautious in using the power of fate in the next mind battle. It was not easy to develop the smoke mission to the point where I can trap dragons, so I cannot fall back to the level of trapping sprite worms. List solemnly made a decision, but he did not dwell too much on it. He was now a dragon knight, a powerhouse standing at the pinnacle of power. He could move unhindered on the legendary continent without the need for the smoke mission. List did not return for the whole night. Oxhoof City was still bustling. Although the battle was over, the fleets of the great aristocrats who had not yet received the news were still converging on Oxhoof City. When they saw the sapphire dragon sleeping near Oxhoof City, all the aristocrats and knight who had arrived heard about the legendary battle between 4 dragon knight and an arch-wizard. The genius knight of the Tulip family had become a dragon knight and had an arch-wizard sister. Listen. His Highness List actually killed the Eagle Kingdom's dragon knight? Impressive. Unfortunately, I couldn't see it with my own eyes. Are you lying to me? A battle between 5 pinnacle powerhouses? Unbelievable. Chapter 735. Levis stood on the deck with a serious expression. According to List's instructions, the family fleet had assembled on the Coral Island for 2 days before setting off. The Eagle Kingdom was invading. The Tulip family's choice was to wait for the Grand Duke and the Bearhawk Kingdom to fight for a while, and then make subsequent plans. In any case, with List's Ghost Blade inheritance, even if he surrendered to the Eagle Kingdom, he would still be valued. They were about to arrive at Cowhoof City. Perhaps the war between the two countries had already started, Cowhoof City had already fallen, and the Tulip family's choice had already begun. I don't know what Father and List's choice is, to stay in Sapphire, or to surrender to the Eagle Kingdom? He pondered, somewhat vexed. The vampire called Mary Dawn Daybreak had led the blood servants to Cowhoof City to investigate, and would soon bring back the news that would decide whether the fleet should continue to Cowhoof City. The process of waiting was torturous, especially since it was related to the future of the family and Levis's own future. Before leaving, his wife Rolia Golden Wheatsway told him that he must listen to the decisions of his father and brother, and not to make his own decisions. This made him very unhappy. He was not happy with Rolia's attitude, as if he was brainless. He was obviously 6 years older than List. Could it be that just because the other party was lucky enough to obtain the inheritance of an ancient warrior, it meant that the other party had a better view of the overall situation than him? He was also unhappy with the ambiguous attitude of Lee William and List regarding the position of the family. Because from the beginning he did not want the family to choose to surrender to the Eagle Kingdom. He was reluctant to give up the status of Sapphire. In Sapphire he was the heir of the Oxtail Marquis, the future Sir Marquis. Once he surrendered to the Eagle Kingdom, it would be difficult to keep his title. After all, the other party valued his younger brother List more. He was very jealous of List. Of the 4 siblings, he had always been a genius since he was a child. Even though the youngest Lytton later showed excellent aptitude, he was still a genius. No matter where he went, people would add the words "genius of the Coral Island" to address him. However, List, who had been unremarkable since he was a child and had nothing but his handsomeness, rose rapidly after the enfeoffment. He had become the brightest young noble in Sapphire City. From then on, only List could bear the title of Genius of Coral Island. It would be difficult for others to be called geniuses. On the contrary, others would always point fingers at him behind his back, as if Levis, who had yet to become a Sky Knight, was a good-for-nothing and a disgrace to the Tulip family. However, thinking of this, the corners of Levis's mouth suddenly curled up into a proud arc. When father and List meet again he will definitely be surprised. There was no other reason. He was no longer an elite Earth Knight, Levis, but an ordinary Sky Knight, Levis. During the voyage the day before yesterday, the chi in his body naturally boiled. After a while, it had become a high-grade water chi and could soar into the sky. Extending a hand, surging with high-grade chi, Levis's heart surged again. I'm afraid that Ralia did not expect that I would become a Sky Knight so quickly. She told me to talk less and be more obedient because I was not strong enough. Now that my strength has soared, who would dare to ignore my opinion? Just then a black bat flew in the distance. Levis narrowed his eyes, especially that Mary. She was very arrogant on the ship and directly ignored my goodwill. Wait for me to greet List and ask for Mary. Let's see if she can still be proud. Although List is very strong, he should give me the Sky Knight face. When he was still an Earth Knight, he knew that List would not respect him. Strength was the basis of his words. But now that he had become a Sky Knight, standing on the same level as List, he had more confidence in his words. Rustle. The bat came to the bow of the ship and suddenly turned into a tall female vampire. It was not Mary but Peggy. Under the cloak was an ordinary female face. Levis had no interest in this face, even if he had always wanted to taste the taste of a vampire. Sir Levis. Peggy hid in the shade of the sail. Vampires did not like the sun. Levis squinted his eyes and said, "How is the situation in Oxfoot City? The fleet can enter the city at any time. The Eagle Kingdom has been defeated and Sapphire has won a great victory." Peggy's voice was filled with boundless excitement. She was still a little dizzy. How did her master become a fire dragon knight and a magic shooter all of a sudden? She was about to organize her words and describe List's glorious deeds. But she heard Levis also say in an excited tone, "Ha, not bad, not bad. I knew the Eagle Kingdom was nothing to be afraid of. Who can compete with Sapphire on the sea?" "Sir is very right. No one can compete with Sapphire on the sea now." Peggy echoed. "Of course." Levis felt a sense of pride. He didn't know what his father and Levis had been so hesitant and worried about before, but he was the one who had the foresight. "It's a pity that we're a step too late. The family's fleet should have set off as soon as possible to get a share of the glory. Not too late, not too late." Levis was about to scold her with, "What do you know?" but Peggy had already said quickly, "Sapphire can achieve such a glorious victory under the glory of Sir List. It doesn't matter if the Tulip family's fleet comes or not. Sir List and Sir H.E. are enough." This flattery. Levis felt nauseous. This group of seemingly arrogant vampires were just a group of flattering clowns. In order to flatter, they even changed the glory of the knight to the glory of Sir List, as if Sapphire's victory was all due to List's ability. However, the more Peggy spoke, the faster she felt. At the same time, "Congratulations, Sir Levis. You and Sir List have the same bloodline. It is really enviable. From now on, you are no longer an ordinary Sky Knight because behind you stands Sir List, the Dragon Knight. No, 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 it is His Highness List." Whoosh! It was like a bolt of lightning piercing through the clear sky. Levis forcibly swallowed the words he was about to scold. His eyes widened and after a full 5 seconds he said, "What did you say? Say it again." Peggy knew that Levis was shocked by the Dragon Knight. Because when she heard the news, she almost peed in her pants. She immediately explained excitedly, "The Eagle Kingdom dispatched 2 Dragon Knight to attack Sapphire. Sapphire Grand Duke was about to be killed. His Highness List rode a fire dragon into the sky, and His Highness Achilles assisted with magic." With a pious expression on her face, she said like a fanatic, "In the end, His Highness List killed the Dragon Knight Carl Lowe Violet, scared away the Dragon Knight Alonso Cyclamen, rescued the Dragon Knight Andrew Sapphire, and became the new overlord of the sea." Go. Levis swallowed a mouthful of saliva and said with difficulty, "Is what you said true?" Peggy nodded heavily, "Absolutely, the whole Oxfoot City is cheering for His Highness List." "Ha." Levis first hurriedly ha twice. After a moment, the expression on his face gradually changed from stiff to tangled, and finally into ecstasy. He laughed loudly, "Ha, Dragon Knight. My dearest brother is the Dragon Knight. I am the brother of the Dragon Knight." He laughed for a full quarter of an hour until the whole ship was boiling, and countless cheers of Dragon Knight sounded. Chapter 736. This chapter is Xiao Ruizi's kitchen. He still stood at the bow with his head held high, but his mood was completely different. Previously, Levis was full of resentment and infinite arrogance. His promotion to Sky Knight made him full of lofty aspirations and forgot the fear when List dominated him. Of course, he had never seen how List dominated those Sky Knights. Whether it was the actual battle between father and son, or against Marquis Wildwave, he had only heard about it. He did not know what was so great about the Ghostblade inheritance. He felt that he had become the #1 figure in the elder brother, and List was just the younger brother. But the news brought by Peggy Dawn instantly shattered his confidence. The so-called Sky Knight's confidence, compared with the deeply rooted power of the Dragon Knight, was so pathetic that it made him feel ridiculous. Compared with the Ghostblade inheritance that he had never seen, the Dragon Knight was more shocking. The Dragon Knight. Even though he had seen the port of Oxfoot Island where many ships were docked, Levis still could not calm down. His embarrassment only stayed in his mind for a few seconds before it was replaced by excitement and thrill. So what if he had the right to speak before? Now he had become the brother of the Dragon Knight. The Grand Duchy of Sapphire can do whatever I want. No one should have any objections, ha. This was another kind of arrogance. But Levis felt happier than when he was promoted to Sky Knight. When the ship docked and saw Viscount Jonas and other acquaintances who came to pick up the ship, Levis regained his calmness. Although he had great ambition but little talent, he had learned how to hide his true side and put on the most standard aristocratic disguise. Viscount Jonas. Sir Levis. After the polite greeting, he could not wait to ask, is the Battle of Dragon Slaying real? Of course. As a follower of the Tulip family, he could naturally share the glory brought by the Dragon Knight. His Highness List's name has resounded throughout the sea. Do you see the Sapphire Dragon lying over there? If His Highness hadn't taken action, I'm afraid it would have died. The Sapphire Dragon was too tired and heavily injured. It had no choice but to sleep and rest near the port of Oxhoof City so that it could gather its strength to return to the dragon nest on Blue Dragon Island. Because of the Sapphire Dragon, the Grand Duke also stayed here. Dragon Knight. Levis looked at the Sapphire Dragon and suddenly thought of List's Fire Dragon. Where is the Fire Dragon? Where did List raise it? Raise the Fire Dragon in your body. In his body? We all saw that the Fire Dragon could turn into a ball of fire and enter His Highness List's body. Perhaps this is the strength of the elemental dragon. There's such a thing. Levis expressed his disbelief. He could not wait to see List, but List was not in Oxhoof City. He could only disappointedly stay in Oxhoof City and wait. He quickly integrated into the aristocratic society of Oxhoof City as the brother of the Dragon Knight, basking in the glory brought by the Dragon Knight. At the same time, List and Ichi had arrived at the Dodo Island. Leo plunged directly into the crater of the volcano to enjoy the volcano supreme magic he had condensed during this time. He also divided the area of influence. No dragon was allowed to set foot on the Dodo Island from halfway up the volcano. That was his territory and there was no room for negotiation. It was not worthwhile to argue with Leo in this regard. List just settled the light green gem dragon on the flat shore of the island. He did not know how long it would take for the light green gem dragon to recover. He could only wait slowly, visit it occasionally and feed it a batch of magic potions. After doing all this, he trained with Leo in the crater for half a day. Only then did he set off to return to Oxhoof Island, join his family, and then return to Coral Island to accept the mission. An 18-year-old Dragon Knight should receive cheers. I don't know why the Smoke Mission issued such a mission. I am usually a very low-key person and have no intention of deliberately showing off. So when he was about to return to the port of Ironhoof Island, because Ichi did not want to stay in the crowded castle, she stayed on the sunset that came with the fleet and read alone. He naturally summoned the little fire dragon Leo and rode him slowly to the port. Finally, under the admiring eyes of Countless Night, he landed in front of the nameless castle where he was temporarily staying. He saw some familiar faces, Levis, Trick, Mary, Peggy and so on. The Tulip family's orders of chivalry arrived as planned. Of course, the Black Horse Island's orders of chivalry were also there. There were not many of them. List, who had long decided to watch from the sidelines, did not let Yevich and the others follow him. Instead, Commander Marcus and more than 60 Earth Knights were mixed among the Coral Island's orders of chivalry. Your Highness List. Your Highness List. The family's knight cheered. These were cries from the bottom of their hearts. From now on they were no longer ordinary knight, but knight followers of the Dragon Knight. Marquis Oxtail was discussing matters with the Grand Duke in Oxhoof Castle. so the nameless castle was temporarily led by Levis. The Sky Knight, who had just adjusted his mentality, was trying to make himself look normal, but when he felt the dragon's might and List's imposing manner at close range, his legs almost trembled. "Leo, come back." List stretched out his hand and snapped his fingers. Leo suddenly turned into a ball of flame, and under the surprised and fearful gazes of the many new knight, he merged into List's body. Except for a few sparks that had not yet dissipated, there was no trace of the dragon. Leo's might also quickly dissipated, and the atmosphere of being strangled quickly returned to normal. List did not like to use means to release the might of the dragon, because releasing the might of the dragon did not have much meaning except for the scene. The dragon-slaying battle had already established enough majesty, so there was no need to pretend to be profound and use the might of the dragon to bait people like the Grand Duke did. List. Levis took a step forward, too excited to speak. It was not until the moment List landed on the dragon that he was completely relieved. The Tulip family really had a dragon knight. Mary, Marcus, and the others almost lost their balance. As a captured vampire, the bronze dragon knight Alonso was a shadow that Mary could not get rid of. Although she had never seen him, he was still a knight who had betrayed the dragon. She often dreamed that she was found by the Black Knight family and faced the cruelest punishment, shivering in fear. But now, her master was also a dragon knight, and he was the fire dragon knight who defeated Alonso. He also had the help of a magic shooter. Therefore, the mountain that had been pressing on Alonso's heart collapsed. Her whole body relaxed and she wanted to fly, but she restrained herself and hid behind the crowd. This was not the place for a blood servant. They were List's eyes in the dark, used to search for prey, not a few flying bats exposed to the light. She only muttered in her heart, "It is Mary's honor to be Prince List's eyes." List did not care about the psychological activities of others at all. He had long been used to being the center of attention with every move he made. "Brother, you're here. Let's go to the hall to talk." After a simple greeting, he walked into the castle with Levis. At the same time, he did not forget to instruct, other than Viscount Jonas, Viscount Trick, and Captain Marcus, everyone else can go do their own things. There is no need to crowd in the castle. Chapter 737. There was no fun in chatting with his brother Levis. Even if he was complimenting himself all the way, List still felt bored. So after a simple chat about the joy of riding a dragon, he went into the study and went about his own business. Marcus and Mary followed him into the study. "Captain Marcus, I expect that a large number of Sapphire Knight will soon want to join the Black Horse Island Orders of Chivalry. I will leave this to you. Don't want a knight with bad conduct, a knight with mediocre talent, and an older knight. In short, choosing a knight requires both moral and talent," List said. Since he revealed his identity as a dragon knight and Achi revealed her identity as a magic shooter, it could be said that the founding of a nation was imperative. The second son of a noble and a civilian knight who could not progress in Sapphire would certainly see List as the greatest opportunity and want to become a veteran of a new country. But List was not a hungry lord, and any knight could become his follower. Better to have nothing than to have something shoddy. Anyway, I don't plan to build a nation in the short term. It's easier to gain loyalty by training a knight ourselves. Marcus replied in a deep voice, "Please rest assured, Your Highness, Marcus will guard the knight selection checkpoint and select a knight who meets the standards you set." Although his expression seemed calm, his eyes were burning with excitement like fire, burning since he was still on the ship. A huge sense of unreality had always enveloped him. It was unimaginable that he had been a tutor to the Dragon Knight. And now his identity was the confidant of the Dragon Knight and the head of the Black Horse Island Orders of Chivalry. Perhaps one day the Orders of Chivalry would grow and the country would begin to build, and he would not be able to keep up with the great Dragon Knight, but he believed that his relationship with List would benefit him for life. For the time being, it was only the title of Lord Knight, but the future would never stop there. "There is one more thing." List thought of something again. "With the magic shooters by my side, there will definitely be a large number of mages pouring into the territory in the future. Chris is not good at organization management. I hope you can work with Chris, Paris, Charles, and Mary to come up with a unified management plan as soon as possible. Just like how a Dragon Knight could attract a large number of knight followers, a magic shooter would naturally be the faith of a mage. It's not just the Sapphire magicians who want to make a pilgrimage to Achi. After the news spreads, the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom, the Eagle Kingdom, and even more distant kingdoms should have magicians coming to make a pilgrimage." List did not like the stubborn side of magicians, but it was not impossible to make use of magicians. Anyway, with his and Ichi's strength, if a magician dared to violate the territory's laws, they could directly obliterate him. The only thing they had to guard against was a dragon-slaying incident like the goat gathering. Therefore, it was very important to introduce unified management and strengthen the surveillance of magicians. After talking about the magicians, List left Mary alone and began to talk about the vampires. Alonso has fled and I don't know if those vampires are hiding. In any case, they are a disaster in Sapphire. Mary, you have to find them as soon as possible and inform me. Mary nodded. Your Highness, rest assured, the blood servants will never let the Black Knight family vampires escape from Sapphire. A night. The banquet was held in Oxhoof Castle. After the arrival of the Orders of Chivalry from the remote Coral Island, basically all the Orders of Chivalry of Sapphire's great nobles had arrived, and the scale of the banquet reached an unprecedented height. At the Grand Duke's table, in addition to List and Ichi, the 7 marquises or the heirs of the marquises were allowed to attend. From Red Crab Island came Mesiro Longtaro. From Deep Throat Island came Warner Pineapple, the eldest son of Marquis Wallace. From Golden Island came Marquis Roderick Golden Wheat. From Red Maple City came Marquis Grindenton Red Maple Leaf. From Leather Island came Marquis Ramirez White Glutinous Rice. Together with Marquis Nesta Magnolia of Quicksand City, Marquis Oxtail Lee William Tulip, and eldest Prince Anthony, a total of 11 people were talking and laughing. If it weren't for His Highness List's help, Sapphire's battle situation would have deteriorated. Your Highness, please accept my respect. Anthony raised his cup in a toast. The eldest prince's attitude changed very calmly. At the celebration banquet of Marquis Oxtail, he had the air of a lord everywhere and looked at List as if he was looking at his own follower. Not long after, he needed to look at List with admiration and no longer dared to put on any airs. The title of Your Highness was also changed to List. Eldest Prince, you are too polite. The sea is not a place where the Eagle Kingdom should intervene. Sapphire is also my hometown, so it is only right that I take action. List smiled and raised his cup. Anthony suddenly smiled and said, Your Highness List, you can just call me Anthony. List readily accepted the good advice and said, Yes, Anthony. He really did not want to call the other party eldest prince. He was clearly the son of a duke. It was a bit funny to have to deceive himself and come up with titles such as prince and princess in a rural island country like Sapphire. Of course, the nobles were thick-skinned, and other duchies basically did the same. After all, duchies were also countries. The Grand Duke sat in the main seat and watched his eldest son socialize enthusiastically with the marquises and List. He felt a little comforted in his heart. In any case, Sapphire had a qualified heir. He quietly gave his brother-in-law Nesta a look, and Nesta understood. He raised his cup and said in a clear voice, This cup celebrates Sapphire's victory. May the glory of the night always bless Sapphire and everyone present. Everyone raised their cups together. After drinking, Nesta raised his cup again and said, This cup celebrates His Highness List and His Excellency Achilles Rhodes for turning the tide and becoming famous in the sea. List raised his cup again and accepted everyone's salute. He was no longer a political novice, and he probably knew that the Grand Duke was just hinting to Nesta to flatter him and put him in a higher position, so that he would not easily have any ideas about Sapphire. Sapphire's strength was now extremely weak and could not withstand List's challenge. Especially when the Sapphire Dragon was unconscious, it was almost at the mercy of others. Of course, it could not be ruled out that the Grand Duke was pretending again, and the Sapphire Dragon might just be pretending to sleep. After all, this kind of thing happened once, naturally there would be a second and third time. In this way, the dinner ended in a harmonious and lively atmosphere. However, the crowd did not disperse. The Grand Duke took advantage of the gathering and announced, His Excellency List has become a Dragon Knight and has decided to establish a country at the right time. I have also decided that Sapphire will fully support His Excellency List in establishing a country. So in the preparatory stage, His Excellency List needs a suitable identity. List smiled and said nothing. He was happy to see the Grand Duke promote him. At least before the country was established, he did need a higher noble identity, a marquis. In the Eagle Kingdom, all Dragon Knights started as a marquis. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.